candidate you feel is best. So if I do it in alphabetical order, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Mr. Collins of Okochate, Collins, and Schneider as the planning board attorney for the calendar year 2024. Can I have a second?
I'll second that. Sylvester.
Dory, can I have a roll call?
Sure. Ernie Reichstad,
Yes.
Christine Dunbar,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Dean Blumetti,
Yes.
Chairman Ron Day,
Yes.
Celeste Luciano,
Yes.
Nick Pompilio,
Yes.
Mike Sylvester,
Yes.
Vice Chair Bill Enright,
Yes.
Justin Canellis.
Yes.
Okay, congratulations, Tom. And I guess based on that, we do not need the motion for Mr. Bernstein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members.
Okay, the next order of business is appointment of the conflict attorney. So we have one candidate, which is Mr. David Brady. I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Mr. Brady of Brady and Coriel LLP as the planning board's conflict attorney for the calendar year 2024. May I have a second?
I'll second him.
Ernie Reichstad,
Yes.
Christine Dunbar,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Dean Blumetti,
Yes.
Chairman Ron Day,
Yes.
Celeste Luciano,
Yes.
Nick Pompilio,
Yes.
Mike Sylvester,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Bill Enright,
Yes.
Justin Canellis.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion has passed. The next order of business is the appointment of the board engineer, for which we have one candidate, Mr. David Simmons of Harold Pello and Associates. So I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Mr. Simmons of Harold Pello and Associates as the planning board engineer for the calendar year 2024. May I have a second?
I'll second it.
Dory, roll call, please.
Ernie Reichstad,
Yes.
Christine Dunbar,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Dean Blumetti,
Yes.
Chairman Ron Day,
Yes.
Celeste Luciano,
Yes.
Nick Pompilio,
Yes.
Mike Sylvester, Vice Chairman Bill Enright,
Yes.
Justin Canellis.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Okay, congratulations, Dave. Okay, the next order of business is the appointment of our professional planner. We had two candidates that we interviewed. They were Harbor Consultants and T&M Services, and we'll follow the same process as we did for the board attorney. So if I start in alphabetical order, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Harbor Consultants as the planning board planner for the calendar year 2024. May I have a second?
I'll second. Sylvester.
Ernie Reichstad,
Yes.
Christine Dunbar,
No.
Deputy Mayor Dean Blumetti,
Yes.
Chairman Ron Day,
Yes.
Celeste Luciano,
Yay. Yes. Excuse me.
Nick Pompilio,
Yes.
Mike Sylvester,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Bill Enright,
Yes.
Justin Canellis.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion is passed. Congratulations to Harbor Consultants. The next next order of business is the appointment of the board secretary. We're fortunate to have Dory Fox here with us. So I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Dory Fox as the secretary for the planning board for calendar year 2024. May I have a second?
I'll second.
Second.
Everybody.
West wins it.
Also.
Ernie Reichstad,
Yes.
Christine Dunbar,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Dean Blumetti,
Yes.
Chairman Ron Day,
Yes.
Celeste Luciano,
Yes.
Nick Pompilio,
Yes.
Mike Sylvester,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Bill Enright,
Yes.
Justin Canellis.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so the motion is passed. And again, congratulations, Dory. And, you know, it's our thanks to you and your entire staff for everything that you do on a daily basis to help us out here. It's
Thank you.
greatly appreciated, and we probably just don't say it enough, but thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, the next order of business is the appointment of the official newspapers. And I believe in our packet, we had a resolution that listed the papers 2024-1. So are there any comments to the context that was in that resolution?
I have a question. Do we need to include online sources as well, or for the planning board purposes, it typically print for notifications?
You don't need to include them, not for purposes of the official newspapers. Right now, that you currently have to use official newspapers, and the Herald is one, New Jersey Herald is one, and Sunday Herald is technically a different paper, so that's how you meet the two official papers. But you can put notices in other locations.
Tom, if I
So
remember
you're just not
correctly,
required.
last year, we did appoint Tap Into Sparta.
Right. And you can add them, but they will not be the official newspaper, and they can't be used for the mailed notice, for the publication of notices for purposes of the Open Public Meetings Act or the MLUL, just they're informational.
Okay.
You can use the Independent, but I don't know if they publish new notices. This is the official, this is the paper that you use for the Open Public Meetings Act that you have to have newspapers for, so.
So do we need to
You can add
modify?
other people, you know,
Yeah.
you can add,
If
but
we
it
wanted
doesn't
to add
become
te-
the official
I
newspaper.
assume it needs to be daily, right? A daily paper.
That's right, it's not a daily,
Okay.
but it doesn't necessarily, I defer to you if the council prefers a different newspaper. Usually the only newspapers that actually do notices are the Star Ledger and in this area, and the Herald and the Sunday Herald.
If we wanted to modify, to add tap into, we could just say, you know, the resolution modified to add tap into?
Yes.
Okay, so any thoughts, any discussion from anybody? Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we approve Resolution 2024-1 covering the official newspapers for notices of the planning board with a modification to add tap into as another source of publication. May I have a second to that motion?
Second that.
Ernie Reichstad,
Yes.
Christine Dunbar,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Dean Blumetti,
Yes.
Chairman Ron Day,
Yes.
Celeste Luciano,
Yes.
Nick Pompilio,
Yes.
Mike Sylvester,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Bill Enright,
Yes.
Justin Canales.
Yes.
Okay, the motion is passed. Okay, I think the last order of business we have is the schedule of meetings. And again, there was a resolution 2024-2 that published a list of all the dates that we were planning to meet. The one question I had was, I think, similar to what I think Mrs. Sylvester pointed out last year. We have a July 3rd date there that we probably want to put that one off. You know, a lot of people are on vacation. Can we exclude that? Anybody any thoughts on that one?
I think the other date that was mentioned as a possibility is November 20th. That's typically gets canceled anyway, because the League of Municipalities
Oh, okay.
conference. So I would actually
Okay,
make a motion that we omit from this list July 3rd and November 20th.
okay.
We could always add later on as needed.
So Dean, is that a
Are
motion?
you, are you
Okay.
making a motion?
Making a motion.
Because
Do I
then
have a
I'll
second, please?
second.
Okay.
Okay.
Roll call?
Ernie Reichstad,
Yes.
Christine Dunbar,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Dean Blumetti,
Yes.
Chairman Ron Day,
Yes.
Celeste Luciano,
Yes.
Nick Pompilio,
Yes.
Mike Sylvester,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Bill Enright,
Yes.
Justin Canales.
Yes.
Okay, so congratulations to all of our new members, all of our reappointments and returning members, as well as the professional appointments made tonight. I think that concludes the reorganization meeting, unless anybody has any other thoughts or anything that you'd like to add. Okay, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn the reorganization meeting and convene the regular meeting. May I have a second?
Second it.
Roll call?
Ernie Reichstad,
Yes.
Christine Dunbar,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Dean Blumetti,
Yes.
Chairman Ron Day,
Yes.
Celeste Luciano,
Yes.
Nick Pompilio,
Yes.
Mike Sylvester,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Bill Enright,
Yes.
Justin Canales.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everybody. We're back in regular session, I believe. Continuing on with the agenda, we have a few correspondence that we need to review tonight. The first one is an intent to file a treatment works approval with the NJDEP from Davies Engineering LLC. Mr. Collins, Mr. Simmons, could you explain what this is to everybody? I don't believe we have an action to take here. It's more of a
Yeah, this
notice.
is just correspondence you received. Maybe Dave knows more about the actual request, but I think it's a single-family house, and sometimes when they do a special design septic system, they file what's called a TWA, but Dave maybe knows this.
That's basically correct.
Okay.
And I think it's basically for informational purposes for the board.
Okay.
Just so you know, that there's conventional septic systems which they meet all the requirements of Chapter 7, 9, or something of the DEP regulations for individual wastewater disposal systems for, and then if somebody seeks an advanced wastewater treatment system for a house or something like that that doesn't meet those regs, sometimes they are approvable by the DEP as a treatment works approval. So it's probably an enhanced septic system for replacing an existing septic system. The other one, this is just correspondence also from the County Planning Board confirming that they've found the diamond chip application incomplete. We can't talk about that pending case because it's a hearing, but this is correspondence that is just being copied to you to confirm that they have been asked by the county to provide additional information.
Okay, thank you for that. So that's,
Mr. Chairman, can I add just a
Yep,
another comment on the first correspondence? Only because this came up at the town council meeting last week. So typically, the treatment works approvals come to the township for consent, and then they go to DEP. The resolution that was passed last week was to authorize the township manager in connection with the engineer to approve for single-family residences. They're pretty standard. But we did carve out, and anything public property, commercial, et cetera, will come to the full council for council to review it and ask questions and then consent if they deem proper. So just a little more flavor.
thank you. Anybody else have any other comments?
I would like to comment on the first correspondence. The Environmental Commission last week examined the property, and this was a property that actually drains right into, I think it's Arapahoe Lake, and then it goes down into Glen Brook. So we were very pleased that they're having what I believe Mr. Collins referred to as an enhanced sewage treatment system put into their property.
Thanks, Christine. Okay, unless anybody has any other comments, we will move on to the council updates or to the updates. Okay, so why don't we start with the town council update, please?
Yep, sure. Thank you. So far this year, we've had the annual reorganization meeting and also our first regular meeting, which was quite brief. Typical activities occurred. We appointed new mayor, deputy mayor, numerous annual type of reorg-related resolutions, getting things set in place again for the new year. And then we went through every board and committee and made new appointments and reappointments.
Okay.
So that's the key highlights that I wanted to share tonight.
I know it was said earlier, but I'm going to say it again, congratulations on being appointed as deputy mayor.
Thanks.
Okay, Environmental Commission, Christine?
Yes, thank you. In the Environmental Commission, we were very pleased to welcome Landon Tanieri as our student liaison. And we also have a new adjunct member, Rob Otto, that we welcomed, and we have a new secretary, Christine Cosco. Cosco. Thank you. So now we have lots of Christines, even more Christines. I was going to comment on the first item, but I already did that. We had one speaker. His name is Ethan Melbazak. He is an AmeriCorps volunteer, and he is working with the Sussex County Municipal Utilities Authority. And he's working specifically with Christine Rogers, who is on the Environmental Commission, and Nate Sajak, and they take care of the Wallkill watershed, which is our largest watershed here. About high 40s, about 50% of our land drains into the Wallkill. But Ethan was there. This is the second time he attended our meeting, and he was very supportive and had ideas for us to achieve our sustainable New Jersey goals, which is to earn the silver and then the gold, which is a nice reflection of our town when we can do that. And he suggested education outreach, a local share project, a rain barrel workshop, and wants to help us with stream assessments. And I believe that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
All right, in terms of subcommittees, due to the holidays and people's availability, we just didn't have any meetings over the last month. We'll have more to report on the minor site plan subcommittee at the next meeting. However, we have at least one spot to fill, which was Angela Cass as the mayor's designee. Again, appreciate everything that Angela did while she was acting as part of that subcommittee. Typically, Nick, I don't know if anyone's talked to you at all about this. If not, we should probably talk after. Okay, why don't we talk afterwards then? Okay. Okay. And then we'll address that at the next meeting. There may be another opening, so I'm going to ask people to think about if you'd be willing to be part of the minor site plan subcommittee, which is just a few words about it. I think the people that have been on that would say it's a great opportunity to learn more about the ordinances of a town, because you can really get a chance to see a lot of different things and talk about it, with the team that's in place, the subcommittee that's in place. So it's a great opportunity, and if anyone's interested, we'll bring that up at the next meeting. Other than that, I have nothing else on committees. The PF committee did not meet as well for the same reasons as the other committee. So I believe unless anybody has anything else that you'd like to add, I think we can move on to the resolution. Anybody have anything that you'd like to add before we move on? Okay, so let's move on to the resolution. Let me just get my notes here. Okay, so this was the resolution on the public hearing for the planning board numbers, no, one. Let me see, take it back. 709 Laura Wellness Strip. Assuming anyone's had a chance to read it, does anybody have any comments? I think I had a few minor things, so I just found my notes here. Bear with me 1 second. Yeah, I can't find it. What it was is basically there was a typo, I think, where the calendar year 2023 was stated twice in 2 places where it was mentioned. And other than that, I think I was okay with it.
Okay, we'll make that correction.
Okay?
And we need a moving party and a second for the Allura Wellness resolution. Is there a moving party and a second
Okay.
with that correction?
Okay, so I'm
Ron
not
doesn't-
eligible
Ron
to
doesn't
vote.
vote on this
Right.
because he voted no, so we need a moving party who voted yes on this approval.
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
The roll-
Deputy Mayor Dean Blumetti,
Yes.
Christine Dunbar,
Yes.
Vice Chairman Bill Enright,
Yes.
Justin Canellis,
Yes.
Celeste Luciano,
Yes.
and Ernie Reichner.
Yes.
Okay, so the motion is passed.
Motion carried.
Okay. So at this point, we'll move on to the public hearing. Planning Board Application 708, Loose Holdings LLC, 53A Sparta Avenue, Block 5019, Lot 23, site plan being carried from the meeting of 12/20/23 agenda. Gentlemen, if you'd like to come up. Mike, would you like to join us up here as well? Welcome.
I'm going to sit down, so.
Okay, gentlemen?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman,
Good evening.
members of the board. For the record, Brian Chakowski, Cleary, Jacoby, Alfier, and Jacobs on behalf of the applicant, Fluss Holdings LLC. We were last before the board on December 20th. We had brief testimony from the architect. This is an application for a 40-unit multifamily building, including 6 affordable units at 53A Sparta Avenue. Based upon the questions we've heard, and to put it into context, my first witness this evening will be Robert McNerney, who is sitting to my left, who is a representative from Fluss Holdings. He will describe the history of the property and some of the features of the property before we go to the architect. So unless there are any questions of me, I would request that Mr. McNerney be sworn.
Mr. McGurney, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And please state your name and spell your last name and give us at least a business address.
Robert McNerney, McNerney, 8 Plotts Road, Newton, New Jersey.
Thank you. Please go ahead, gentlemen.
All right. Mr. McNerney, could you explain to the board your relationship with Plus Holdings?
Yes, I represent Fluss Holdings in various transactions, basically acquisitions of vacant land to develop property.
And you're familiar with multifamily developments throughout the state?
I am.
And you also have other licenses that the board should be aware of? Are you a licensed real estate broker?
I am.
And are you a licensed appraiser?
Yes, I am.
Okay. And are you familiar with the property located at 53A Sparta Avenue?
Yes,
And it's my understanding that Fluss Holdings is the contract purchaser of that property.
that's correct.
And it is also my understanding that you are familiar with the history of that property?
I am.
Could you describe to the board what was located on that property in the past to the extent that you know?
Yes, the property was originally developed with a hotel, a motel. It was known as the Valley View Motor Lodge and had a swimming pool with various other amenities. The records state that it looks like in 1964 that was built. And then subsequent to the hotel ceasing to exist, then there was an assisted living facility in 1987, converted to Valley View for seniors with 26 rooms. That eventually went out of business, and I understand it was a fire that destroyed the buildings. And as of today, we still have the foundations for that building and the swimming pool on the site, along with the broken up paved driveway and parking area.
Okay. Could you describe the proposed project that has been submitted to this board for review?
Yes, the proposed project is made up of 40 units. There will be 7 one-bedroom units containing 730 square feet with 1 full bath, 31 two-bedroom units containing between 973 square feet and 1,022 square feet, with each having 2 full baths. So the 2 bedrooms will each have 2 full baths. And then as part of the affordable housing, we, in order to conform to their regulations, we have to build 2 3-bedroom units, also with 2 full baths. Building will be 4 stories, serviced by an elevator, with each apartment either having a covered balcony or terrace. The amenities, I know we had some discussion with the planner last time. The amenities will include an exercise room on the 2nd floor, community rooms on the 3rd and 4th floor, individual storage closets on the 3rd and 4th floor for tenants. And then we have a fenced-in common area amenity at the front of the building, which will be made up of a covered pergola with seating, fire pit with seating, a barbecue area with 2 picnic tables, and in addition, we're going to have 12 electric charging stations as part of the parking design. If you'd like, I can.
And Mr., go ahead, Bob, then I'll ask the question. So, Mr. McNerney, you asked you requested the site engineer to prepare an amenity exhibit, correct?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Collins, if we could have that marked as A1?
Yes, that'll be A1. You don't have any prior exhibits?
No, the prior exhibits were part of the application project, package, I'm sorry.
Okay.
All right.
It says A1 has a colored rendering
All right.
of the outdoor. What would you have, how would you characterize it, Mr.
The
McNerney?
outdoor amenity package.
Okay.
All right, Bob. Is there a date on that, Bob?
1/17/24.
All right, and that was prepared by Burton Engineering at your direction.
That's correct.
All right, could you describe to the board what's depicted on what we've marked as A1?
This amenity package is included in the site plan, but it's very small, so we blew it up and colorized it to give you a little better flavor of what we plan to do. This area is located in the front of the parking area as the driveway comes up. It's pretty substantial. It's 20 feet wide by 100 feet long. And in that area, we propose a covered pergola with seating for, it looks like 10 seats under the colored pergola. We have a fire pit here with 8 seats. And then we have the barbecue area here with 2 picnic tables. It's fenced in, separates it from the parking lot.
Now, in addition, I know the architect will testify, but it's my understanding that the applicant is willing to add some architectural features to the building, and the architect will testify to that, correct?
Yes, the
Okay.
facade of the building, you know, we're looking to maybe upgrade that a little bit. We did make some minor changes, however, I don't think we're fully happy with that at this point.
Okay. And could you, the developer is Fluss Holdings, are you familiar with them?
Yes.
And could you describe to the board what Fluss Holdings does and whether they are familiar with multifamily developments?
Sure. Fluss Holdings is a third-generation real estate company that owns and manages more than 1,200 apartment units throughout the state of New Jersey, northern New Jersey mainly. Very familiar with on-site management. This would be managed by the company. As far as the controls of what's kept on the balcony, the garbage, the loading, that'll be all under the company's control.
All right, thank you, Mr. McNerney. Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions for Mr. McNerney.
Can I ask a question now? Yep. Yeah, so, thank you for that. You mentioned in the history of the site about, it was an assisted living facility, I think it began in 1987 approximately, and then a fire destroyed it. Was that the end of it being occupied, and what time frame was that? How long has it been unoccupied, the
That
site?
I couldn't find from the research in the public records, but evidently the assisted living company ceased to exist, and then a fire occurred, and it's been sitting dormant there for many years. I don't know if anybody knows better history than that, but from what I saw in my research, it's just been abandoned. And, you know, we found the site would be perfect for our type of development because there's obviously demand for apartments in Sparta. We don't have one public or one market rate apartment complex in town. We have, up by ShopRite, we have a couple units, and then we have some 55 and older units, and our people, our tenants, it's a lot of young professionals, retirees who can't afford taxes in Sparta anymore and sell their house and have a place in Florida, but want to maintain a residence in Sparta. So that, and then big market is divorcees, where somebody gets divorced, the kids are in the programs. I mean, there's really nothing available in Sparta to meet that demand. And then we're also looking further out in Newton, we have Thor Labs that's building a humongous building. And there's going to be a great demand for new apartments, modern apartments.
Does anyone else having a better idea of how long it's been unoccupied or any?
I know it was unoccupied, still standing for a couple of years after the assisted living went out of there. But it wasn't too long. It was maybe a year or two. And then, you know, then the fire occurred. So I do know that. It wasn't immediately, but it wasn't long.
Okay, but so we're talking at least 20 years
I would,
or 25 years?
based upon my
Okay,
inspection of the property, I would say 20 years would probably be close to it.
thank you.
But again, I wasn't here 20 years ago,
Yeah.
so I don't know.
I have a few questions.
Okay, yep.
So we've got 7 one-bedroom, 31 two-bedroom, 2-bath, and 2 3-bedroom, 2-bath?
Correct.
Okay. And the 2 3-bedroom, 2-bath are low income?
They're affordable units,
They're
yes.
affordable units,
Mhm.
okay. So do you have a breakdown of what the rental amounts will be for the 1-bedrooms, 2-bedrooms?
At this point, things change so rapidly, we don't. We have a pretty good idea based upon the Newton project that was just built. They're at $2,500 a month for the 2 bedrooms, so that's a good comparable. I think Sparta's a little better location, closer to 15, so.
And with these, are utilities included in these rent amounts, not included?
No, utility, it'd be plus utilities, but, and also you have a laundry room in each unit too.
Okay, so each unit has its own laundry? So
Yes.
it's not a shared laundry space?
Yes. And the ceiling heights inside, it's not gonna be 8 foot, it's gonna be 9 foot, give a little more volume.
Thank you.
Uh,
Good. Ernie?
The property, that includes the driveway all the way down to Sparta Avenue, correct?
Yes. So this is the property here. And the neighborhood's made up of various uses. If you look.
And I'll give you the mic, Bob.
Don't mess around. Takes 2. So this is Sparta Avenue, or Sparta Road, 517, whatever you want to call it. We own the whole piece, the flag lot. So as far as easements go, we are given easements to the Burger King and to the retail strip center, so that they can come out and access. There's also another access point here. Now, this site to the north, that's approved for retail use, but it's been vacant for a long time. That's across from the Mohawk House. And then you have Burger King, Wells Fargo, office building, Wagmore, Chase Bank. So a variety of commercial uses. We have a great neighbor here. We have the Methodist Cemetery, so shouldn't get any complaints from them. And then this area here is a conservation parcel that was dedicated. That's 17 acres. It's all wooded, and that's not going to go anyplace. Another cemetery here, found just south of that.
So my question is, as part of the overall project, there's also basically to repair and repave that road all the way down, right?
I think it needs it.
Yeah, it needs it. That's why I'm
No,
asking.
we want a nice entrance, you know.
Yeah.
We're trying to protect, we would try to protect our investment. We're gonna put in Belgian block curb, have a curb cut for the retail stores and curb cut for Burger King. And I think that'll control all the traffic.
Mr. McNeary, what is the scope of your testimony, just so we know which questions to ask you, which ones to hold off on?
I guess you should ask and I'll tell you.
I have 5 pages. So I got to know where to start.
I think Councilman, Mr. McNerney's familiar with the area of the project and the like, so if there's, I'll direct them one way or the other.
Okay, we're not going into to stormwater, we're not going into environmental or engineering, correct? Or architecture, right? Those are different, correct?
Yeah, I just want to give you a general overview of the project, and then all the details will be answered by the architect and engineer.
I have 2 questions, just quickly. Are there any known environmental issues that you're aware of during your due diligence process related to soil, groundwater, previous historical use of possibly a fire and PFAS and the like?
No, we have a Phase 1 report that is clear.
And you're comfortable with that? There's no,
Yes, we're
open
comfortable with
records.
that. And also, as far as soil borings, there's a lot of sand and gravel on this site, so I have, we're gonna have people interested in
and
taking
then
that
a
outside.
totally separate question in regards to the property management. Are you gonna have an on-site super or a property management firm just managing the property?
Well, I'll be 15 minutes from the site, so I'll be on call, and then we'll probably have a super on site as
And
well.
then just as far as third-party services, snow plowing and all that are contracted out?
Yes.
And your easements that you own, would you be taking care of those as well, or are they responsible, or each of the other adjacent property owners or your neighbors responsible for that flag lot portion where you have access to the other lots?
We will be taking care of our portion. We're not gonna go onto their property, so we'll keep our driveway clear, snow, keep it in good shape.
Okay.
So are we talking about the environmental impact statement now then?
No,
Okay, okay. The rear of the building, there's no access road to it. I saw the fire department's report. How would a fire truck access the rear of the building in case of a fire?
again, I think that's the engineer that's. gonna-
Engineer? Okay.
Okay, if I could, I wasn't here for the last meeting. I did watch the video, but I just want to check with Mr. Simmons. Do you have any questions that were not answered that we still need to have clarified from your memo?
Mr. Chairman, as part of the presentation by both the architect and the engineer, developing and explaining the project, a lot of our points will get answered along the way
Okay.
at this point.
Mr. Stratter, I'll ask the same of you.
I just have one question that's still in our report, and I think you briefly touched upon it. And it's the amenity space that you have the separate exhibit for. Was there any consideration of relocating those amenity courtyards, sitting areas closer to the building so that the people who are in these apartment buildings don't have to walk across a surface parking lot and then sit in an area that's, you got a parking lot on one side of you, I got a driveway on the other side of me, and I got this linear sitting area that may not be in the most comfortable location if I've got nothing but cars idling on both sides of me.
All I can say is we have other projects with similar design where the amenity area faces onto the parking area, and we have no complaints whatsoever. And again, if you're looking at the site and you're in that amenity area, you're gonna be looking out this way, which is a nice view. You're gonna have a view of the cemetery, but you're gonna have all woods on this lot. So it's really tight to put it anyplace else. We wanna try to maximize it, and that was the one spot where we could. I mean, it's 2,000 square feet of space, so it's not small.
You mentioned there's a community room and an exercise room. You have the approximate square footage of those spaces?
The architect will
Okay, I'll
testify to
hold
that.
off. All right, thank you.
So with the courtyard being where it is, what's the walkability around the area? I mean, are residents going to be, able to walk comfortably? Are they going to be able to get off-site comfortably
have-
to the commercial areas?
Right, the engineer will testify to that, but we're gonna have a sidewalk built to access that area. So they'd have to cross through the parking lot at some point, yes.
But they do have to cross the parking lot
Yes.
openly.
What will be the view from Route 517?
I don't think you're gonna see much from 517. From 517 looking into our property, or from our property looking out?
No, looking in to the complex.
You're gonna hardly see this building from the street. You know, maybe 517, you'll have a little, see the top 2 floors, but good grade differential.
And what will be the impact to the neighboring lots, specifically in front? So lot 22, which is Burger King, and not just stormwater, but in general.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, from a marketing standpoint, it'll have positive impact on all these banks and stores there. You're gonna bring people, which is the intent of the whole plan, to bring people downtown. Now, I know getting downtown to, let's say, St. Moritz or one of the restaurants, it's walkable. You know, I don't know if I wanna walk it back up, but it's walkable. And, we're looking to bring the people downtown.
How about access to those existing businesses? So if this driveway gets redone and there's cutouts made to it for Burger King, for example, how will that access circulation within that lot?
Probably the same way it is now, but a little smoother. I don't know if you've been through the Burger King parking lot, but it comes right up onto ours and then out. So, it works now. I don't see any change in that.
Will there be a loss of parking spaces at all?
No.
No?
Can you go into a little bit more detail of how the driveway would connect through the Burger King, however?
I think we can have the engineer testify to
Sure.
that.
You mentioned Flush Holdings, 1,200 apartments that you guys are responsible for. Any local to the area that you can give us some examples of?
Our first foray into Sussex County. No, mainly Bergen County, Hudson County, some in Passaic County.
The trees behind Burger King, you said you don't anticipate being able to view from 517. What about on Sparta Ave? Are those trees going to remain there, like in the back of the Burger King lot?
Yes. And the engineer will testify to that. And we're also looking to plant more trees and shrubs, so.
You had mentioned at the beginning of the presentation that, and I appreciate it, that you're going to take a look at the facade a little bit. So will we have a chance to see that tonight or at a future meeting or?
We're not gonna be able to show you a facade tonight, but we understand see, I didn't realize in the master plan there were pictures or photos
Right.
of the buildings that you're trying to replicate. So more in line with downtown Lake Mohawk area, that type of facade, you know. more-
But I think you could appreciate that without knowing what it looks like, it's hard for us to
Right.
say, yeah, we're good with that design.
Yeah, so the architect will testify to
Okay.
any recommendations from the board that we may be able to implement.
And along those lines, and I appreciate you had the colorized version of what it would look like. When I look at it, it doesn't really show one complete side. Is there anything that you could do to give us a better feel for what this building's going to look
We
like?
could give you all 4 elevations, but understanding that nobody's gonna see them. Because the back of the building, there's a grade, and the side of the building's out to 517.
But where you may see it, at the Stop and Shop lot, I will tell you, one of the views of Sparta is when you're coming down Route 15, you're looking over the hills there, there's going to be very viewable from that spot as well. So you'll want to make sure that we're maintaining the architecture and the design from that aspect as well.
No, I agree, and we'll, if you'd like, we show you 4 elevations.
Okay.
Each side.
Okay, thank you. I've got a question on the drawings, and I'm not sure if this is you or not, sir. The drawings that we got of the floor plans were all marked conceptual, but this is looking for a final approval. So would the drawings be modified to take the word conceptual off, or what was the intent of that?
Well, I think the big issue with that is full architecturals have to be prepared,
Okay,
provided the board votes favorably.
Okay.
We're not gonna spend money on full architecturals at this point, they're concepts. The box isn't gonna change, the layout isn't gonna change. It'll stay in keeping with the plan.
okay. So let me just defer to our professionals. Is that sufficient for the type of approval that we're that they're seeking here?
I would say, Mr. Chairman, it's important, and the applicant has agreed to provide, for example, the 4 elevation views of the building. We've had, not necessarily this applicant, but just by way of example, we've had applicants in the past that have shown plans, and then when it came time to actually go to construction, they at first didn't want to make, for example, the rear view all as good as it showed on the conceptual plan. And we had to bring them back to the board and force the issue, if you will. I'm not saying this applicant is saying that.
Okay.
But I think it's good that they provide all the views, and as Mr. Collins incorporates the reference to those elevation views and those floor plans into any resolution that the board might consider, then everybody knows this is what we're looking at. And when the construction department looks at it, they're going to look if it's brick or stone or whatever it might be. And if they were going to deviate from that, in all likelihood, that'd be more than a field change. They'd have to come back to get a modified approval.
Okay, so if I could just replay it back to you. So it sounds like what we have here is typical and sufficient for this level of approval.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
subject to getting all the views we discussed.
And
Okay.
I think to clarify, Mr. Chairman, although it says concept plan.
Yep.
The number of units, the type of units, the size of units, the location of units will not change.
Okay, all right, thanks.
We also labeled which ones would be affordable. We tried to have them interspersed throughout the building and not in one section.
Okay. And I have one last question, and I'm not sure if this is to you or to an engineer, but I believe there's one loading space that's provided for. So typically, when I look at an apartment building this size, people moving in, people moving out, the high volume of online ordering, is one space sufficient? If so, why would you think so?
Well, first, I believe one space is sufficient, and it's based upon our operations at our other buildings. As far as moving in and out tenants, they're on a scheduled time. They get a time slot when they can pull in, when they can pull out. You're not going to have 5 families moving in at once. We control that.
So if somebody was to move in, would they use that loading space?
Quite possibly.
Which then, and I imagine that's typically a couple hours each time, so if there was to be deliveries of, online deliveries, where would those trucks park?
Usually they just pull up to the side of the building, from my experience. It's not going to have a package room where they're going to be directed to. It's not like they're going to leave the packages outside either.
So would you consider a second space, looking to see if you could, if there's fit a second loading space, just to make sure that,
I think my engineer is better equipped to answer that
okay,
question.
fair enough. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question about the test pits that are in the application. Is that something for the engineer to answer
Yes.
for the soil? Okay.
I have a question. What about the view from Sparta Ave? I think the question you answered tonight was the view from 517. What about the view from Sparta Ave?
I don't think you're going to be able to see the majority of the building, Sparta Ave. We,
The question is right in front of the Burger King, not Sparta Ave, right? So,
Yeah.
okay.
I don't think you're going to be able to see
Four
much of
story-
that building.
It's 4 stories, correct?
It is, but it's up on top.
On
I
top
think,
of the
uh,
hill?
yeah, it's pretty big grade difference between Sparta Ave and the site where the building's gonna be. And we placed the building facing east because that's the best view as far as we were concerned.
So the building will be facing the cemetery with the side facing towards Sparta Ave?
Yes.
And you don't believe we'll be able to see it from Sparta Ave?
I guess my point is, we weren't gonna put the long side of the building facing Sparta Ave.
Okay,
So we put, that's only 52 feet, that side of the.
the side of the
building.
building.
Yeah, so
And how many feet is the front of the building? Approximately.
230 feet.
Okay, now that's facing the cemetery, correct?
Correct.
That, the next question is, what's the view from Main Street?
I don't know what it's gonna be,
Okay,
well, it's built, but that's several hundred feet to the east, so I don't know.
okay. Thank you.
Hello. Following along those lines, when people are getting off of 15 and driving into Sparta, will that be like a monolith on top of a ridge? Will it be like just perched on top of the ridge there? I mean, you won't be able to see it from Sparta Ave, and you won't be able to see it from 517, but after you get off of 15 and you're coming into town, just passing the Stop and Shop, which would be on your left, there it would be on top of the ridge, a 4-story apartment complex.
I don't think it's gonna be any different than the Mohawk House or any other higher building, you know? I really don't think it's gonna stick out. I think it's gonna blend in.
We'll know better when you have all of your views diagrammed
Yes.
and illustrated. Mhm. Thank you.
What are the plans for handling school student bus pickups? How is that going to be worked out? Because I understand there's a, allocation estimate of students that would be there, that would be going to the schools.
I don't know what that allocation is, but based upon our other buildings, I wouldn't say more than a couple children. Typically,
I think it's in here. I think it's either 8 or 11. I'm not sure, but it's around that number.
Typically, this type of housing isn't conducive to school-age children. Couple will move in with a toddler, buy a house in Sparta, move out. It just doesn't work. And based upon our other buildings, we see very few school-age children. We have a 30-unit building in Wanacue that generates 3 school-age children. So, and that's typical.
Is that similar bedroom layout?
Excuse me?
Does that building in Wanacue have a similar bedroom layout as this
Yes,
apartment building?
29 units, yes. Both 3-bedroom units there.
There is an estimate, though, in your application that I think the number is not 2, it's higher. So I'm curious because we have bus pickup in Sparta, as you know.
I wasn't aware of that number,
Yeah.
but I'm just telling you from our experience.
Yeah. So that will need to be coordinated, correct?
I would imagine they walk down the driveway and get the bus at Sparta Ave. But really haven't thought about that.
Okay, are there any other questions from the dais? Okay, so I
Mr.
guess,
Chairman, I just wanted to swear in Mike Mistretta and our engineer. So Mike and Dave, please raise your right hands. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
I do.
Okay, and Dave, state your name and your business address.
David B. Simmons Jr., Simmons, 17 Plains Road, Augusta, New Jersey, 07822.
And Mike, your name and spelling and business address.
Michael Mistretta, Mistretta, principal at Harbor Consultants, offices at 320 North Avenue East, Branford, New Jersey.
And Dave, I didn't ask you before you testified before, so would you just confirm that the statements you've given tonight are the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, they are.
Thank you. And these oaths will carry our professional witnesses through the 2024 year for all future hearings, so we don't have to do it every hearing. Please go ahead. This is next, Mr. Chairman, I guess your call on the next step.
while we have Mr. McNary up, maybe it would make sense to go to the public and hear comments that they have. So does anybody from the public wish to say anything, ask of this applicant, of Mr. McNerney?
Wouldn't be a meeting if I didn't have traffic questions.
Ma'am, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You state your name, and you don't have to give an address.
Okay, Beth Broderick, North Shore Trail in Sparta. Bear with me. I have a couple questions. How many parking spots per unit are allocated?
The engineer would have to answer, I think it's 70 total.
Okay, and has a traffic study been done?
Again, the engineer would testify.
Okay, this may be an engineer question too. Will the driveway be shared with Burger King?
I think my testimony was pretty
I didn't hear your answer, so bear with me.
okay. Burger King and the retail strip, that's Burger King and the retail strip that's on the other side of the driveway, both have easements now. There's a curb cut, or will be a curb cut, to get in and out of Burger King, as well as the retail strip.
Okay, it's gonna, and is it gonna be wide enough for two cars, so like one goes in and one goes out
Yes,
at the same time?
yes.
Okay, and then, do you know how traffic will be affected on both Sparta Avenue and on 517?
Again, that's the engineer that'll answer that question.
Okay, and I know we just touched on this, but school buses, I know you just said that your proposed development or place is not generally one that, the type that attracts students, but if one or two live there, I guess you're gonna look to see how traffic will be impacted for school buses and stuff like that, and also will a crosswalk and stuff like that be put in because it's a high-volume area for traffic? I don't know if you've spent a lot of time there, but right there is where you have a left turn lane starting right by the house on Burger King to go up, to continue on 517 and Sparta Avenue and straight to go onto 181, continue on Lafayette Road and 181. So you already have a lot of activity there. And if you're putting in a residential area, you're gonna possibly have an increase in pedestrian traffic and sidewalks and stuff like that, so.
We hope to have an increase in pedestrian traffic, number one. Number two, the site was formally improved with a hotel.
But that hotel, I've been here for 45 years, it'll be 45 years on Valentine's Day. It's very different from 20 years ago when it was senior living in a hotel. It was not a full-time residential area for multi-bedroom homes or units. It was a hotel that quite honestly did not get a lot of in and out. I was here, I know it didn't, and seniors did not reside in two-bedroom homes with, you know, the potential for a lot of pedestrian traffic, or in and out, so that's why I'm asking.
No, I understand, and I'm very familiar with the traffic patterns in front of the driveway there. But as far as technical questions regarding how many trips or lefts in and rights out, that would be the engineer that would answer that.
Okay, and also traffic is very different now than it was when it was a hotel and when it was a senior place. So that's, again, why I brought that up. But either way.
It was very different, as most of the town, the traffic patterns were very different.
It has, but either way, let's move on. Is this particular area zoned for residential?
Yes.
Okay. And also, this may or may not be a you question, but that's considered, I believe, 517, which is a county road. Does the county have to be involved in traffic patterns and access to both Sparta Avenue and also the 517 bypass where Mohawk House is?
Not to my understanding, there's no curb cut on 517, so we're not accessing.
Okay, so 517 is also, correct me if I'm wrong, Sparta Avenue? So that's why I'm asking, and that's where Burger King is. So that's, again, why I'm asking that question.
I thought you were talking about where the Mohawk.
Mohawk House is the 517 bypass, and then Sparta, so that's why I was asking about that. And then I was also asking about Sparta Avenue, which may be a county road as well. That's why I'm asking. Again, that's, and I'm not a road
If I
expert.
may add to that, I'm sorry. Sparta Avenue is actually a state highway, Route 181.
Okay, so that's why I was saying, so would the state be involved then in access?
Yes, they're going to have to, if the board approves it, they'll have to get permits from the state to tie in the drainage, utilities, and what have you.
And traffic and stuff like that, and any
They'll
kind of
look at the
adjustments for
overall
that?
entrance
Okay.
configuration.
I already asked, did you say that did I hear that there may or may not be an access point across from the Mohawk House?
There will not be an access point across from the Mohawk House.
Okay, and then if we could go back to the delivery, you said that there would be one parking spot for deliveries, and you said also in your other locations that that there's one spot and it wasn't a problem, and if people are having deliveries, they just pull up next to the building for their delivery, so if they're having like food delivery or furniture delivery or whatever, I just want to make sure, is that going to be a safety issue for the residents? And again, kind of ties into traffic. These guys will tell you I'm a stickler for traffic and safety. And fire department and stuff like that. Because,
First, I just want to say, this is a large investment into this community, and we want to keep it safe, and we will keep it safe. The fact of the matter is, you have all the UPS trucks and the Amazon trucks pulling into driveways and parking on side streets every day. This isn't going to be any different, but we're going to be able to control it because we're going to have on-site controls that will eliminate any potential problems.
okay, in a narrow, one-way in, where, like in a very restricted area with one spot, my concern is that if you have a tiny area with one parking spot for what you said, I believe is deliveries, and if you have multiple, there's gonna be a lot of turnover.
The reality of it is
With-
that
in a
not everyone is going to be home at the same time. So to say that every space is going to be occupied, no, there won't be any place to park, that's not true either. So I think it'll be fine. I don't think there'll be any problems whatsoever. We haven't had any problems in our other buildings. It's just the sign of the times. This is the way life is now.
I'm just making sure, I've been here a long time. I've seen a lot of accidents right at that spot. I just want to make sure that we're not putting in something because there's an area where, there's property and it's, hey, let's put a building in, and then we wind up with, something that really doesn't fit. And I have one other question. Actually, are you, with the exterior and how it looks, can we revisit the facade? What is it, my concern, I'm a little bit concerned that it's going to look more like a prison or a jail or an institution.
I hope not. Nobody will rent.
So do you have a picture of it that we can see now? Like, do you have a drawing up there that I can see? Because I don't want to, again, I want to make sure that it's going to fit with Lake Mohawk, because Lake Mohawk is very distinct, has a very distinct look to it, or if it doesn't fit with Lake Mohawk, with Sparta. Because if it's like a brick and mortar, but it's like gray with black,
I testified before, we're going to revisit that. We're going to come back with elevations for all the building sides, and we're coming back with a new front for you to look at.
okay, but again, I just want to express concern from a long-term resident,
Beth, if I could, I'd like to,
Okay,
if you have questions,
no, I just wanted to
please
make
feel
sure,
free.
I'm concerned about that as well, and, that we're not looking at,
Appreciate it.
a prison type of building when you're pulling into
We
town.
don't build prisons.
Okay.
Thank you.
Kathy Ebbinghaus, Scudder's Road.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And please spell your last name.
EBBINKHUISEN.
Kathy, if I could too, just before you start, it's, again, if the questions are related to the engineer or the architect, I think that would be the next person up. So if you could hold those, if not, feel free to ask away as you see.
I'm not sure what questions
Okay,
would be
we'll ask
directed to
them and
the
we'll determine
architect,
based on what you
so
ask them.
if they are, if you
Okay.
could let me know, that'd be
Okay.
great. And then I'll come back up and re-ask those after the architect testifies, if that is okay. Okay, so I have a couple here. The first one is, how close is this building to adjacent property lines? And what are the setbacks in this zone? So that's kind of a question for the dais, for you, sir. Okay, but for the dais, do we know that for this zone? In a general sense?
Kathy, you should wait for the engineer.
Okay.
And then ask him. If he doesn't describe it adequately,
I
then
will put
ask
an
him.
either for the engineer, thank you. Are there alleys proposed around the building? Yes, alleys.
Explain what an alley is.
Sure. When I think of an alley, it's a walkway of some width that would allow mobility of individuals.
And that's the engineer.
Okay, thank you, sorry. Will the entire property be fenced? I know you referred to the, the zone there or the pergola area that has a fence around it, but will the entire property be fenced?
No.
No. I did ask this last time, but I'm not sure I got an answer, so I'm going to ask it again today. Will clothing or decorations, et cetera, be allowed to be hung on the balconies?
Clothing, absolutely not.
No clothing. Okay. And you had referred to it's under the company's control. Can you explain more about that?
We're not going to hire an outside management company to manage the property. It's self-managed by us.
Okay. And do you have rules around what could be hung or not?
Yes, we do.
And what are those? Nothing would be hung. Okay, no decorations, no
satellite
towels.
dishes, no clothes.
Okay,
We want to keep it presentable.
appreciate that. I noticed there's green space proposed, and that was discussed today. Are pets allowed?
Yes,
Can you elaborate on what pets?
don't discriminate.
Okay. So is there a place for dogs to relieve themselves on the property?
Honey,
And that's expected to be in the green space where people are enjoying?
no, we have
There's a,
woods all around the property.
okay, so there would be a designated area, or it would just be, hey, go in the woods?
No, what we do is we put up containers with bags. Tenants take their dogs out or cats, I don't know. And if they do their business, they pick it up in a bag and put it in a container, and we have our super empty it.
Okay, so your expectation would be that animals are allowed, they're allowed to use the facilities, and that their owners are taking care of that to maintain the property. Is that right?
Correct.
Wonderful. Okay. Is this 100% rental property? I believe it was discussed last time. And what were the demographics and that you're marketing to? I believe you mentioned divorced dads
Moms?
or moms.
Our general population, young professionals, young couples, possibly with toddlers, retired individuals who lived in town all their life and sold their house and have a place in Florida and want to maintain a residence here, be close to their family. Divorce market, whether it be the husband or the wife, there's a huge demand for that.
Okay, and you don't anticipate that population having children there?
Again, we don't anticipate a lot of school.
Okay. This is probably an engineer question. Is there a traffic light being proposed or being conceived of in that space in front of the Burger King where I believe the only ingress and egress is?
Good engineer, right?
I believe so. Just checking. What, if anything, will prevent people without business in this building from prevent them from entering the parking lot?
Tenants watching.
Well, if I was your tenant, I wouldn't be watching. Are there anything else other than the tenants?
It's not like we have a property that's right on the road. You'd have to find this apartment complex in order to want to go in. So, I don't see that being any problem.
I would say that because it is so far removed from the road, that could be a draw for somebody who wouldn't want to be seen. So something to consider there. You mentioned moving trucks. Is there enough space for moving trucks to get in that driveway and also allow for others that are leaving? Same with delivery trucks. You're expecting that. How wide is that driveway? Engineer. Okay. Are there sidewalks for kids if we're talking about a bus stop?
Yes,
Where would the sidewalks be?
engineer.
Okay. You mentioned a fire pit. Is that a safety concern for the board? That being a fire pit in the middle of a space that's pretty much self-contained, around it? Is there any concerns there? No, okay. I think that might be all the questions I have. All right, I guess I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Cap. Anybody else?
Jenny Derrick's Tap into Sparta. You just mentioned a moment ago 100%. I'm sorry.
Were you sworn at the last hearing on this?
Yes, I was.
So you understand you're still under oath?
Yes, I do. Thank you. 100% rental.
Correct.
I thought that there was a requirement for a percentage of units to be sold in order to take advantage of the larger footprint, impervious coverage, and height.
Mr. Chairman, if I may address that, I did speak with Mr. Collins today. We are not exceeding the coverage requirement. We are below the coverage requirement. That is something that Mr. Burton, the civil engineer, will testify to, so we will not need the for sale units. The project will be 100% rental.
Because you'll be under the impervious coverage, if
We're
I understand it
under the
right. And
impervious
you'll talk to
coverage.
more specifics on the numbers and stuff with
The
the engineer.
numbers you'll hear,
Okay.
but the ordinance basically said, if you have 80% coverage, this is what you have. If it's 70 or below, you don't need to do it. We're below the 70%.
Okay.
Mr. Burton will testify.
I'd be interested to hear all of those specifications because 4 stories I thought was also part of that, and the setbacks, the very tight setbacks on all sides. Thank you.
Been capped out on questions. It's an easy one, I promise.
I'm sorry?
Have I been capped out on questions that has nothing to do with traffic?
If you'd like to approach them with time, feel free. I'd like to, if you could, though, I'd like to keep it, okay.
Mr. Merriman, you were sworn at the last hearing on this, weren't you?
I was.
Plus
correct,
Holdings, so
yes.
you understand you're still under oath?
Still under oath, yes.
And just state your name then.
Adrian Meerman.
Go ahead.
I have a question. I heard this while I was still on the YouTube feed, so the question may have been answered already. You mentioned the advantageous location of this building, placed in the surroundings, the cemetery, no complaints from both neighbors, tree cover around the building, so it would not intrude on the visual beauty of Sparta. But I would like to know, how high is the building and how high are the trees surrounding the building that you expect to plant?
Well, the architect will answer the question as to the building, the trees. I don't know if the engineer knows or not, but that would be the engineer.
Because you said that with some confidence, so I figured since you said it, you would know the answer.
Know the answer to what?
What kind of plantings would be proposed around this building? How will it be visually protected from the various vantage points?
I thought your question was, what was the height of the existing tree?
Well, maybe so, but there's going to be future trees also, I imagine. So I would like to know if the trees are expected to cover the visual impact of a 4-story building and a very modern-looking building. How high will those trees be? Will there be true coverage?
The engineer will answer that. There's a landscape plan in his submission.
And the reason I bring this up, and this is for the days, about 30 years ago, there was the development on Schooley Mountain. And Schooley Mountain was completely paved over, and no trees can mitigate the visual blight for miles and miles around. So if the building, a 4-story building of a very modern, and it has been called prison-like appearance, if that towers above any trees that we have in Sparta, the light pollution, but also the visual blight will be considerable. And I brought it up since you brought it up about 45 minutes ago. My other questions are by and large for the other professionals, although a question about the population you plan to attract. When you mention divorcees, and you mention not only men but also women, but you don't expect children to live with their parents, even if in a single-parent setting?
It's been our experience that the children come for the weekend and then go back to the mother or vice versa.
And if the divorcees are women, as you just, specified, the children will still be somewhere else? There are going to be children. If you have divorcees, single parent households, there are going to be children. So saying, oh, trust us, it hasn't happened in our other buildings, I find hard to swallow.
I'd like to be a little careful here, and Mr. Collins, I'm going to ask some help. When we start talking demographics and who you're advertising to, it tends to go outside, to me, the scope of what we're looking at here. So, Mr. Collins, I'm going to ask you some guidance on this.
Well, the questions, as long as they're questions, they're within the scope of this man's direct testimony. I think what you're getting at, Mr. Chairman, is that the land use law and the ordinances do not allow the board to determine whether people can have children or not and have what the number is. And that's generally true, is that the zoning allows families, it allows uses, it allows people to have children, and allows. So what this debate about may be about the estimates of the number of school-age population, which there are ways to do that estimate, and presumably the applicant's engineer will be talking about his estimate that he made. So maybe that's a better witness for cross-examination by Mr. Meerman.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so my questions about the population we can expect using that complex is what will the traffic, not only car traffic, but foot traffic, and also what kind of population flow will go through that building? Are these essentially one-year rentals? Somebody down on his luck, divorced person, or a professional who just needs a quick housing and then moves on again? Is that a stable population? And what will that do to the quality of life in that neighborhood?
Try to just ask this witness what your question is. And that sounded like a question, so maybe he can address that question.
Yeah, so since you run exclusively these buildings around the state, that is your business model, what is the turnover of your buildings?
I would say 3 to 5 years.
Oh, sir, pick up the mic again.
It's not working.
Oh, it's not working, maybe? Yeah, stand by that and speak into it. I know it's hard, but.
Hello? Yep. I would say 3 to 5 years, but we have some tenants that have been in building for 40 years, so it's kind of hard to say.
I used to own and run 2 apartment buildings in New York City, 40 units total, and I know turnover can be a real problem.
Not in New York City, you have rent control.
Some buildings have rent control, some buildings do not. And some neighborhoods are more stable than others. So what will the expected market rent be for, say, a 2-bedroom?
We don't know. Again, my testimony was based upon the new building, that's the buildings that have been built in Newton. 2 bedrooms are probably around 2,500 plus utilities.
Okay, just, you mentioned that retired couples who could no longer afford property taxes in Sparta would move to Florida, buy a house there, and have a $2,500 a month rental unit in Sparta. The flow of information did not strike me as being truly factual. Is there a need for this kind of building in Sparta, or it is more a business model, build it and they will come? Do we have people who cannot afford our taxes, move to Sparta and have a rental unit in Sparta? I question the need for this building. I know that that is not your purview, but I question the need for the building, and I question the flow of the presentation in which we're giving all the other buildings work out for us. Why don't Sparta just accept what we have to offer? That's my concern. I know that's more a comment than a question, but from your presentation, I thought you were talking about your other buildings, not about the need for Sparta to have this building.
Well, there's obviously a need because you have no multifamily buildings in town. Zero.
So then it's the old question, build, or the old observation, build it and they will come.
No, I would take the tenants that live in Sparta renting units in Newton and bring them back to Sparta.
And then in Newton, in the empty apartments?
Excuse me?
And what will happen to the empty apartments in Newton when you bring them here to Sparta?
I have not, that's their problem, that's not
That's,
my
that's their
problem.
problem.
And again, if I could, it's, when you look at what we're doing here, it's, is it a permissible building as opposed to is there a need? And does it meet the requirements if it is a permissible building? So I'd like to try to keep the conversation along those lines if we could.
I understand. And I'm done with my comments, thank you.
Thank you.
This was more to,
Yeah.
to make an observation about how to interpret
That's
the
fair.
testimony tonight.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Very fair. Thank you.
And for the applicant, I mean, the information that you shared regarding the type of tenants, that was just for information, try to give a perception or an understanding of what type of tenants we shall expect. It's not fitting your particular business model. You're building multifamily rentals,
And that's the market.
and that's the market. The
Yeah.
market's gonna dictate who could afford it, who could come in and move. There's no restrictions, Tom, if I may, there's no restrictions. I mean, we're getting into some really, off-keel record, conversations here. You're getting into steering, you're getting into a lot of other conversations here. He's building, the applicant gave information out to the public, but I think it's, whether it was for informational purposes or if it was specific. If it's specific, then we're into a different conversation here. And we're spending a good half hour on. a
Mike, why don't we
perception
just
of what
let
type
the,
of tenant.
why don't we let the witness finish? If they want to do redirect, they can do redirect. There's a degree to which questions that are related to the direct testimony are relevant, and that's sort of what happened with the questions. It's not time for testimony. That was a little beyond questioning. Let the witness finish, and let's get to the engineer who presumably has more detail.
And just to answer your question, I think everybody on the dais knows people that looking for apartments in this area. It's just not available. That's why we chose Sparta. We love Sparta, the look, the feel, everything. And we think it's gonna be a real winner. And hopefully, everything works out.
Looks we have one more question.
Rick Finkel?
Rick, were you sworn at the last meeting on? Okay. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
And please go, Mr. Finkel, please spell your last name.
Finkle.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question. What would the rental model be? Is it a month-to-month or annual leases or what do you plan that to be?
Annual leases.
Okay. Only, I bring that question to the table because Sparta's strongly considering putting a ban on short-term rentals.
We
So-
love having tenants for long-term.
I'm sure you do, and you said 3 to 5 years, but if someone is in the middle of moving from one house to the next, or, not sure where they're going, or divorced or whatever, Sparta's strongly considering putting a ban on anything less than a year. So I just bring that to the board and also to the developer.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Finkel. Okay, anybody else? Okay,
Thank you for your time.
thank you.
I have one question, actually, sorry. You mentioned the fire pits and the barbecue. Was that reviewed by the Sparta Fire Department Bureau? Because I think when they did their report, that was not conceptually on there. I'm
No,
just
that
thinking
was-
about location.
That was on the site plan. I think everybody missed it because it was at the bottom of one of the pages. It was the detail at the bottom, but it was on the original site plan that
Okay,
the fire department reviewed.
okay, it's, how close is it to the building? We're talking about a open fire pit and a barbecue area. I'm
That's-
assuming charcoal, not gas.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's why we put it across the parking lot, so it's far away from the building.
Okay.
If you want a
Beyond-
measurement,
No, but just beyond the fence of that area that you show up here,
Yes.
What, yeah, approximately how far is that? That's the other side of the parking lot.
Dean,
Is that correct?
I think it would help to just use the engineer for this, because this witness is not the person who should give calculations of distance.
Okay.
Engineers should do that, or surveyors, but we have an engineer coming up.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, would you like to bring,
I think we should have the engineer, Mr. Chairman.
okay.
Please. Tell you what, let me move. Why don't you sit here? You'll be closer to the easel.
And if I could just see where the reason we asked that you both use the mic is, this is being streamed, and without using a mic, the people at home aren't able to hear what's being said.
Sir, please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
Yes, I do.
And please state your name and address and spell your last name.
Callisto Burton, Calisto, Burton, Bertin. My office is at 66 Glen Avenue in Glen Rock, New Jersey.
Thank you.
Mr. Burton, could you briefly provide the board with your educational and professional experience, please?
Sure. I have a degree in civil engineering from Villanova University, a master's degree in engineering from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute. I'm licensed as a professional engineer in New Jersey and 5 other states. I'm the principal of Burton Engineering and have been since 1986, and we have about 40 employees. This is what I do: land development, and traffic engineering, some other things too. But I happen to be the engineer on the prior application that for this property. But Mr. McNerney is a longtime client, so it was a coincidence that I'm here again.
And
Thank you. The board will accept his qualifications as a professional engineer.
so you're fully familiar with the property, Mr. Burton, having testified here before on the prior project?
Well, yeah, what I remember.
Okay. Why don't you go through,
Sure.
so I believe Mr. McNerney described the surrounding area. Why don't you tell us, and what exists on the site? Why don't you describe to the board the site plan and how it functions, and then we'll get into the details.
Yes, as Mr. McNerney. Here we go. As Mr. McNerney discussed, this is a flag lot. It's about 2.5 acres in size. It has 33 foot of frontage on Sparta Avenue, which is, as we discussed earlier, a state highway. The driveway exists, so we're not doing a new driveway, we're using the existing driveway. And there's a long road that comes up from the driveway. I have on the board drawing C 2.4 from the site plan. It's the same drawing that was submitted, so it doesn't have to be marked as an exhibit. I'm sorry, it's not colored, so I hope you can see it. So Sparta Avenue is on the left side. North is to the upper right corner. You can see the north arrow. So we have Sparta Avenue, and then we have a long driveway that's about 700 feet. That's the existing driveway that comes up to the former motel, former assisted living. There's quite a grade change, about a 30-foot grade change from Sparta Avenue till we get to the top. But that road is, again, it's long, and it's got a gentle 5% slope to get up there. So it's not a very steep driveway, although it is a driveway. In addition to the building that was located on top, or the remnants of the building, there's also a parking lot that's there, or the remnants of a parking lot. There are plenty of trees on the site, and I could see by some of these evergreens that are on the site that they probably were planted when the hotel was made. They're very old, 80 feet tall. So there's the area as you come up the driveway. Okay, so Burger King is off of Sparta Avenue on the right side of the driveway. As you come up the driveway, there's some woods along the back of the Burger King, but the Burger King parking lot goes pretty much up to the property line. But when you get beyond that, as the driveway moves back, on the bottom of the page is the cemetery, and that area is wooded. And all the land on the north side of the driveway behind the Burger King is wooded. It's a mature forest until we get up to the top where there's a clearing, and then there's trees all around the perimeter. And, you know, we searched, there's no wetlands or threatened endangered species, and as Mr. McNerney said, the site passed a phase 1. So there was nothing found. There is an old septic system on the site, up at the top of the driveway. That system will be removed. So what we propose, as Mr. McNerney testified to, is to remove the building, remove the septic system. We're going to maintain the driveway, widen it, and bring it up to current standards, and build this 4-story building that's about, like we said, 130 by 55 feet, and do the new parking lot. That parking lot has 72 parking spaces. Now, the amenity area, so we could see, as we come up the driveway, as we get to the top of the driveway, we put the amenity area right at the top of the driveway, opposite the building. So, well, it's 120, 150, 160 feet from the building. I'll get into that since it's been a topic of discussion. The goal of this application was to minimize disturbance of the property. Now, I mentioned I was the engineer on the prior application, which was for 70 units. That layout was handed to me, and I made the best of it that I could. But that required extensive site work, extensive excavation. The extra 30 units probably had $3 million worth of extra construction costs. And that's one of the reasons why I never went anywhere, because it didn't pencil out. And so when Mr. McNerney came to us with the property, the idea was, what can we do to work with the property the way it is? And not, you know, rape the whole site. I mean, we were taking tens of thousands of yards of soil out of the site. It was sand, so it was marketable, but it was a lot of disturbance. I mean, we had 25-foot cuts right along the cemetery property. So the goal was to work with the property. So we have very little disturbance. When we get to the top of the site, we're just leveling off where the parking lot and the building were, expanding it a little bit, but we're not touching the woods along the slope, and we're not touching anything. So we could move the amenity space alongside the building, say, maybe move the dumpsters and put them over there. But then we're cutting down trees, and we have to do pretty high retaining walls because that's a pretty steep slope from the side of the building down to the driveway as you head directly towards Sparta Avenue. That's a steep slope. That would be tough to walk. You're not walking it, you're climbing it. So we didn't want to disturb that land. In that woods, like I said, I would call it a mature forest. There's a lot of small trees, but then there's some very big mature trees, 80 feet tall. The evergreens are probably 60 feet tall. To answer the question, the building's, I think, about 45, 46 feet. So there are trees on the Sparta Avenue side that are much taller and then wrap around the property. And from the cemetery, there's only a little bit of vegetation there, so that's where the building would be most observable. That would be, I guess, to the southeast. So that's the view over the cemetery. From the front here, you could see down across the valley, but then in the wintertime now, you could see the street, but in the summertime, you're not, well, from the parking lot, you're not going to see the street, maybe from the roof, because all the trees will grow. We're proposing trees. I'm a little out of order here, but this is what was critical. We're proposing trees, and we'll get to the landscaping towards the end, but I saw that there's an opportunity to plant some more trees over time to grow and help screen the building. But you're not seeing this building from Sparta Avenue by the Burger King. So in addition to the 72-car parking lot, the building, there's a trash enclosure area here, 2 dumpsters for recycling and trash. I'm not sure how we do it here in town. Some towns separate them, others don't. There is the loading space that was discussed as we get to the top of the driveway and head straight back towards the building. We have a loading space over there. I'll talk about the loading space. We do have two signs proposed. One's down near the entrance of the driveway, and then there's another one right at the top of the driveway. Small signs, 12 square feet in area. But anyway, we have some signs. So we'll just jump into the parking. Mr. McNerney said, and I guess the architect said last time, there are 7 one-bedroom units, 31 two-bedroom units, and 2 three-bedroom units. And the three-bedroom units are required by affordable housing. It's not, from my clients who have affordable housing units, the 3 bedrooms sit empty. I have a client who's got several buildings in Wanacue. We're doing several there now, and they just don't rent because I guess with the income limits or whatever, those don't go that fast. It's not a regular family coming in with a bunch of kids. It's got to be affordable family. So anyway, just an aside. And this is for the audience more than for the board. The state of New Jersey has developed parking standards or what they call the residential site improvement standards. Planners, developers, officials, engineers got together and developed this book so that real estate, the rules for residential development were consistent across the state. Yes, there's variations from one part of the state to another, but certain engineering requirements remain consistent. And one of those is parking. So when you're going to question why I'm saying the numbers we have, but this was studied by professors and by professionals in the field. So the parking requirements for a one-bedroom unit is 1.8 spaces per unit. A two-bedroom unit is 2 parking spaces per unit, and a 3-bedroom unit is 2.1 parking spaces. And in that number, a quarter space per unit would be attributable to guest parking. So this is not my opinion. This is what's been promulgated by the state of New Jersey, and New York uses it, and Connecticut uses it, and other states use pretty much the same standards. So when we multiply the number of units by the appropriate parking ratio that I mentioned, we have a requirement of 79 parking spaces. I mentioned there are 72 parking spaces on the site. Because something else came around last year was a requirement for electric vehicle charging stations. The state of New Jersey wants to move forward with affordable, they want to be, they're probably the best in the country with affordable housing, but also with electric vehicle infrastructure. So the state has said if you provide electric vehicle parking, well, you have to provide electric vehicle charging stations. We give you a certain credit for parking. So we know it's going to cost a lot of money to put them in, so we'll let you, we'll give you a credit so you don't have to so you can get a deduction on the amount of parking spaces. All right. So we have 12 electric vehicle parking spaces. They double. You could use them for electric vehicles or not. And we get a credit of 10% of the required parking. So the credit is 7 parking spaces. So where I said we have 79 required, we get that credit of 7, means we only have to provide 72 parking spaces. And so that's what was done here. There's a program on how they're installed. I think it's 6 years. Is that right? 6 years? You
It's
have to,
5.
excuse me?
Every 5 years.
Oh, well, you have to put in a certain number. You start with a third, and then you put it in over a year, several years. So they're all made ready. So the electric is there, but we don't have to put all the chargers there. Anyway, some people are doing it up front, but it's just, those are the rules. So we have 72 physical parking spaces, which is equivalent to 79 parking spaces when you add the credit. And so we require 79 parking spaces. Now, I'll just move into access and circulation. So there is a sidewalk proposed from Sparta Avenue all the way up along the north side of the parking lot to the top of the hill. And then we cross the driveway at the top of the hill, and go along the property line, and then back in front of the building. So we have pedestrian access from the building all the way down to Sparta Avenue. The statistics, and I'm not going to get into the statistics, I just want to mention it, that the state of New Jersey's also studied the student age population at apartment buildings, and their statistics, I don't have them, if they're in the environmental impact statement, I think we probably got them from a planner, and I don't recall what they are, but usually some, elementary school, maybe some high school kids and middle school kids, but they would all walk to the street. In my work in other towns, school buses will not come up on private property, and in most towns, you have a limit of 2 miles to walk. We're walking 1,000 feet, so the children would, if there are school children, would walk down to Sparta Avenue. We do have a drawing. I'm going to flip this to drawing 2.7. I've been looking at drawing 2.2. 2.7 is our vehicle circulation plan, and we show a fire truck traversing the site. So the driveway we're making is a 24-foot wide driveway. That's a standard driveway. Roads are 28 feet. We're allowed to have parking on one side. So, and anyway, and as is the driveway that exists there now, it's a wide driveway. It's a two-way driveway off of Sparta Avenue alongside the Burger King. I'll just mention this. The Burger King now has two driveways connecting to the property. They're both exit driveways. The one driveway for the drive-through lane, we show the Burger King on the site. I'm sorry. The Burger King is shown on the site. We show the exit driveway for the drive-through, so all drive-through traffic exit out onto this common driveway. And then there's another exit driveway that comes out onto the common driveway, exit only. And then the Burger King has a two-way driveway on Sparta Avenue. On the other side of the driveway is the Strips Shopping Center. That's got an open parking lot, all paved. We're gonna work with their parking layout and put two curb cuts to control traffic so it's not all over. And the drawings show two curb cuts there with our crosswalk across those driveways. It's wide enough now to handle two-way traffic, and I'll talk a little bit about traffic. To make sure we hear what our client said is, our client will maintain the access, because it's not paved, it's in bad shape. Our client will maintain that driveway. I imagine there'll be some cost sharing with the. No. Did it die? Yeah, it's like my, my pointer is dying. So they will maintain it because it'll be in better condition than it is right now. It was not plowed, it's not salted. Anyway, because I went up there tonight just to check it out. Also, we will have a bicycle rack outside, and there'll be some storage rooms inside the building for bicycles, and sometimes people bring the bicycles and bring them into their units. So we will have bike parking. Mentioning this, back to this drawing C 2.7, it shows a fire truck coming up and driving around the parking lot. That would be the same as a box truck. We don't have large moving vans. This is not a 2,500 square foot house. It's a 700 or 1,000 square foot apartment. Usually deliveries or moving comes in the form of a 12-foot or 14-foot U-Haul type truck. That's how people move in. And so the loading space we have is more than sufficient. Now, Mr. McNerney mentioned that turnover is 3 to 5 years. That's great. So what do we have, a move-in once a month, once every 3 months? So that parking space isn't really used that often for move-ins. And the management will control when people move in and move out. So the other deliveries we have are the, I guess DoorDash and, Amazon and UPS and that sort of stuff. So how often do they come? They don't come, and even if they each come once a day, that's 3 trucks, 4 deliveries, And so pulling into that loading zone is more than enough. If we have more loading zones, it's a waste of real estate, it's a waste of pavement. It's really not needed. And the quick deliveries, sometimes someone may pull right up to the front door and go in to the lobby. Anyway, so I feel that one parking space, one loading space is sufficient. More loading space, again, is just a waste of pavement. All right. So I mentioned that we're going to keep the grading. We're not, but with this footprint of the parking lot and the building, we're not really impacting the woods along the side of the driveway as we come up the hill. We're not really impacting that. It's pretty much in a level area. There will be some grading behind the building. The property behind the building that's to the northwest, straight up the page. There's an easement to grade out on that property. It was with the prior application, because that property rises up. My guess is that that's the high spot in the area that if and when that property is ever developed, they'll probably cut the whole hill down and quarry the sand and gravel that's there. But anyway, so that's the extent of the grading. We did do a calculation. It was requested of us. We have about 9,800 cubic yards of excess fill that will be, 9,800 that will be taken out. And one thing is we widen this driveway. We will be putting, you could see there's a retaining wall along the uphill side. There's a retaining wall there now that in some places it's dilapidated, but in order to keep the grade, we'll put a little retaining wall, and it's 3.5 feet high. It's not a tall retaining wall along there. And again, we're trying to work with the topography. So we are increasing the amount of pavement, but not by very much. We have over an acre of disturbance, so it's called a major development, but the increase in impervious area is less than a quarter acre. The only reason why that's important because it triggers certain requirements for the detention system, which we're meeting anyway. So we have to reduce the rate of runoff, and we do that with an underground detention system. We've done that. One set of the rules say you don't have to do water quality, but another set of rules say you do. We are doing water quality, so that what they have to do, green infrastructure. So by water quality, I mean that in the water, there's silt, maybe there's touches of oil. Another thing, we don't care about it that much here in New Jersey, but our office in Massachusetts gets involved, phosphorus and other contaminants that are in the rainwater or from the runoff that you want to clean. So we have a filtering system that has certain media that the water passes through and is cleaned before it goes into our underground detention system, which is a recharge system. Now, we've sized the system as if there's going to be no recharge. And then it'll overflow and go out, because that's the way it is. That's the way they do it in New Jersey. All right. So, but we know based on the test pits that were done some time ago that we're on sandy soil. So we did a retail center in Oakland, and I've gone there, and again, sandy soil, there's never been water that left the property because it'll be absorbed. We don't design, the design assumes that water is going to flow out of the property. So, but the reality is that a lot of it's going to be infiltrated, and that's what we want to do. We want to recharge the groundwater. We don't want it flowing to the rivers and causing flooding. We want to, like I said, recharge the groundwater in the aquifers. Anyway, so we have a large system. It's in front of the outdoor amenity space where our detention system is. So we collect the roof water, and this part of the state is clean. That goes directly to our detention system and recharges. And then we have the rest of the parking lot, which goes through this water treatment unit. And then it goes into the underground detention system. And then we have what we call an outlet control structure that controls the rate at which water leaves the site. So that's how we do it. We, narrow it down. So we got a big pipe coming in and a little pipe going out. So the system fills up, and then over time, as the water, as the rate of water that comes into the system reduces, we still have that constant flow going out the bathtub, and then eventually it'll empty. And so that's how the system is designed. So that's how we reduce the rate at which water leaves the site.
Just so we're clear, Callisto, all the water that, from the impervious surfaces is captured on the site and will go through this detention system.
Yes, that's all from up top. And then we have a couple of inlets that go down along the driveway that's collecting the water. That's bypassed. It's downhill, so we can't really capture it. And that's included in the calculations. And we're taking it out and we're connecting into Sparta Avenue, which is a state road. That means the Department of Transportation will be reviewing, besides your engineer reviewing all our drainage calculations, the Department of Transportation will be reviewing them as well. And they make sure we follow all the state regulations just as well as your engineer does. All right. Our utilities will bring gas up from Sparta Avenue. There happens to be a utility pole right now, I guess, that serviced the prior building. It's right at the bend. When you come in from Sparta Avenue, there's a bend in the driveway, and there's a utility pole there. So we'll pick up our power from that point and go underground up the hill, which is the only disturbance we're doing in that hill. We're going to go up the hill to the building with our utilities. The same, our sewer will come down. As I said, we'll get rid of the septic system, and we'll bring the sewage system down. And at the beginning of tonight's meeting, there was discussion about a TWA, a treatment works approval. We'll have to go through the same process should the board approve it. So this way, the DPW looks at it, the treatment plant looks at it to make sure there's capacity. And that'll be reviewed by, again, it'll go down to the state. With our power, we also have an electric generator, gas-powered generator off to the side of the building. It's not required, but it's a good thing to have. So we'll have generator for the life safety portions of the building. If you have the drawings there and you want to go to drawing 2.2, no, not 2.2. The landscaping is on sheet 2.5. And so I'll go back to the site plan. In the parking lot, well, we have some new trees around the parking lot and trees behind the building. These are deciduous trees and a couple of decorative trees in the amenity area. As I mentioned, after looking at it again today when there was no vegetation, the only time when I've been here in the past, it's been wooded. And I could see the opportunity to clean up some of the woods and plant some additional properly evergreen trees around the property. And so I'm just saying that I also asked the client, we'll do that. I mean, what's on the plan, I think, is sufficient. We have evergreen trees along by the generator, but we're offering to add some of that to the plan. There was a discussion, and I really wasn't sure about this, about the waivers.
Before we get to the waivers.
Well, I was just going to do that one, but go ahead.
So, with regard to the landscaping, you indicated on the landscaping plan, there are a number of deciduous and other trees that you're proposing, correct?
Correct.
And you've already testified to the existing wooded areas that the intention is not to disturb those areas. Am I
Correct.
Correct. And then in addition, I believe you testified that the trees that are surrounding the property now are quite mature, that are in excess of 40 feet.
Oh, yeah, 60, 80 feet. Yeah, there are some very large trees out there. And the evergreen trees are probably full height, 50, 60 feet.
Now, with the deciduous trees that you are adding, what is the planting height and what is the rate of growth?
We're planting, the deciduous trees that we're planting will be planted 10 to 12 feet. There's a total of 32 trees. So there's the shade trees, There's 14 of those. They'll be planted 10 to 12 feet tall. And then we have some ornamental trees, like a flowering dogwood and a cherry tree. They come in a little smaller. They're 5 to 6 feet tall. And then we have evergreen trees, but there's only 6 of those. Those are 8 to 10 feet. So those are pretty decent sizes for initial planting.
And usually, what's the rate of growth for the deciduous and evergreen trees?
These decisions. These evergreen trees, probably around a foot, maybe a little less a year.
What about the deciduous?
I tell you the truth, I'm really not sure. I'm really not
So it
sure.
would
But
depend on the species.
yeah. Usually, because people worry about, screening, and we don't look at deciduous trees for screening. And then there's a lot of shrubs around the property.
And
Now,
you wanted to touch on one of the waivers with regard to the landscape.
yes, there was a waiver regarding the percentage of landscaping within the parking lot. And I just want to be sure on how that's calculated. That doesn't include the trees around the perimeter of the parking lot, just what's in the middle of the parking lot? Okay. So we're at like 3%, and we're supposed to be at 5%. So to eliminate that waiver, what I thought we could do is, in the parking row farthest from the building, we have space to put 2 more parking spaces, and then I could take 2 spaces out of the center row of parking, probably on the right side, and make that landscaping. So we put a few more shade trees in the parking lot. We're not increasing the amount of impervious area, but we're adding a couple of shade trees. There was one more, since we're at waivers, there was one more waiver about the distance along the northern or northeasterly property line. I guess we weren't aware of this. The sidewalk is 4 feet from the property line, and we're required to be 5 feet. So if we're approved, I'll take the whole parking lot and shift it a foot, so we can avoid that waiver. So I'm trying to get rid of 2 waivers, or at least reduce 1.
So just so that we're clear, we could meet the 5% landscaping required within the parking areas, and that we could also shift the parking area to maintain a 5-foot landscape strip between the parking and property line.
Correct. And there's one more waiver, we might as well get to it since it deals with parking, the parking area. It's required a 4-foot separation between the parking and the sidewalk. And I'm not sure if that's right up against the building. And in the RSIS standard, when you have parking up against the sidewalk's 6 feet to compensate for the overhang. And just like out here in this parking lot, you park up against the sidewalk. So I could see in other areas, but not in that area where you want 4 feet of landscaping, because you get out of the car, you walk to the sidewalk, and you got to trudge through the landscaping to get to the sidewalk. So I think it's appropriate to have the sidewalk in front of the building up against the parking. I mean,
That makes for easier access, correct?
yes, okay.
All right.
So-
And while you're on the waivers, I know we beat this one pretty good. According to the standard, 4 loading spaces are required and 1 is provided. And I believe you testified that would be sufficient for the building.
Yes,
All right.
okay. Lighting.
Why don't you go to lighting, then we'll go to traffic.
Sure. So what we're proposing is a lantern-style light. I think it's part of your landscape features. The difference between the new lanterns and the old lanterns, the bulb used to be in the middle, so you see the light source. The new lanterns, it's an LED light with the LEDs at the top shining down. So when you're on the side of it, you're not looking at the bulb anymore. So it does a better job of cutoff, so we don't do light pollution. And then we can manipulate what direction those lights will go in. So those lights are placed all along the driveway to provide lighting, and then up into the parking lot. We're using the same lantern-type lights. We kept our lighting levels pretty low. We have a 3-foot maximum foot candle, and then the average is 1 to 2.5 amenity between. The average is 1.5, and that's pretty low. That's, we don't normally get that low, so we kept it low because, again, we're being sensitive to the area. Sometimes, actually, there's a requirement to keep it at a minimum of 1. So we can adjust it and raise it up, but I thought this was good to keep the light level down in that area. All right. And I mentioned that we have the 2 signs, and neither of them are illuminated, so it's just, ambient light.
There have been the questions regarding the traffic, Mr. Burton. Were you able to do an analysis of the traffic?
My office did do something. We did not do a formal traffic study. I don't believe we had old traffic counts. But let me just talk about the traffic. So the Burger King's traffic peak is lunchtime. Although they have a breakfast menu, it's really the lunchtime traffic. Our peak, for our peak being the residential, is in the morning and in the evening, right? So those 2 uses who are using the same driveway don't compete. And then you have the retail, I guess, but that parking lot behind the retail empties out onto this driveway, but I guess the next 3 commercial buildings, all the parking lots are connected, which is a good thing. So people don't have to go out onto Sparta Avenue, come on and off. So that's a good thing. It helps distribute traffic. Generally, the peak hour traffic for a 40-unit building is about a third of the units. So what's that, 13 vehicles, most of them leaving. So maybe 10 leaving the site in the morning in an hour. So that's in 1 hour. So that's not a heck of a lot of traffic. So that's the type of traffic that would be generated by this. We do have to go to the Department of Transportation, but their review of traffic will be what we call a letter of no interest. We will give them the trip generations, and the trip generations, I'm not making up numbers. These are numbers that were established by not only the Department of Transportation, but the Institute of Transportation Engineers on what kind of traffic a building like this will generate.
So let's try to be a little clearer here. Since we are going to be on a state highway, we're going to have to provide traffic information to the Department of Transportation. My understanding is that the Department of Transportation relies on its own numbers, but those numbers are based upon the numbers that have been published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, correct?
Correct.
Excuse me, sir, can you use the microphone?
Oh, I'm turning it around. Let me see if this one will work again. It comes on and off. So that would be based upon information that would be contained in the published data of the Institute of Transportation Engineers, correct?
Yes.
All right. Now, you made a few statements that a 40-unit development would have 2 peak hours, 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening. Can you give us a little more precision on that? What do you perceive the morning and evening peak hours to be?
Probably around 7:30 to 8:30 in the morning would be the peak hour. 7:30 to 8:30. And then in the evening, somewhere between 5 and 6 in the evening. It depends how far people work.
And you also indicated that for a 40-unit development, it would be roughly a third of trips by vehicles during that peak hour, correct?
Correct.
And there would be certain trips in and certain trips out.
Right.
Okay. And again, that would also have to be reviewed by the DOT. Now, you also said that this would be, I forget your exact words, but DOT would not consider this a major access project, correct?
Correct.
And in order to determine the major access project, does the DOT have a certain standard, that standard be, I believe, of 100 peak hour trips?
Correct.
All right. So based upon your analysis and your understanding of the data, the published data that DOT will rely upon, this will not require a major access because it is significantly less than 100 vehicles.
Right, and we use that because we're using the existing driveway. The driveway exists. If it was a new driveway, it'd be an access permit, but the driveway exists.
Okay. So we've also heard various questions relating to the impact on Sparta Avenue, which is the state highway, along with 517, which I believe is to the north, if I have my directions, my directions correct. So let's talk a little bit about the impact on the existing traffic flow and the impact and how this will work.
Okay. I mentioned how the Burger King operates. There's no restrictions for left or right turns, in or out, and that would remain the same. So while there will be more traffic associated with it, I don't know if this is the right term, but it would be below the DOT's threshold for review. It would be considered de minimis. But the more important thing is that we're not coinciding with the peak hours of the Burger King, which is the use that uses the driveway the most. I'm not sure what the retail center next door uses, but I'm sure it's not that much traffic.
And do you perceive any impact on the traffic flow on Sparta Avenue?
Well, there's always going to be an impact because we're going to add another car. So when I say my term is not a detrimental impact, yes, there'll be a few more cars exiting and entering the driveway, but it's not going to be to the point where it's going to be a significant detrimental impact, which is the threshold that we have to abide by.
Now, it's also my understanding that you provided the traffic testimony with the prior application.
No, I did not. All that was provided with the prior application was the letter of no interest, what the trip generation was, and that was done, I think, by Dolan and Dean.
Okay. And that letter of no interest was from the DOT?
Well, that was the application, and that was a 70-unit building, so this is a 40-unit building, so it'll be less.
Thank you. There were also, why don't we go to, I believe it's your first sheet. You have the zoning criteria for this zone. I'm going to ask you to go through the zoning table. And I believe when the drawings were prepared, I apologize because this is not working. I think the battery keeps going dead. When this drawing was prepared, I asked what is the required, what's being proposed and what was previously approved.
Oh, correct. And, okay, so there's no requirement for lot area. There's no requirement, well, okay, but again, the lot is, what'd I say, 2.5 acres. There is a small dedication because for whatever reason, well, this is the way it used to be. The lot line, the property goes out to the center of the highway, so that portion, it's hatched on the site plan. That will be dedicated to the DOT. That's the way property used to be. You went to the center of the right-of-way. The right-of-way was a right across someone else's property. That's the history. So center lines used to go to the property line used to go to the center line of the highway, of roads. Anyway.
If I could just want to make sure that everyone's clear on one thing. So when you talk previously approved for a different application, but not this application.
It's the same property, not this application. So the previously approved was the 70-unit development.
Right.
Put it into context, you wanted to see what was required, what was.
Right. Just as a comparison.
Previously approved.
Right.
Because this hopefully will be less than.
Okay.
Yes, this is a less intense.
Okay, so just for information as a comparison. Okay, thank you.
Yes, it's just a comparison, and that's all on drawing C 1.1. So The allowable maximum impervious coverage for a four-story building is 80%, and we're at 61% coverage. Oh, the other one was 68%, but we're below the 80% impervious coverage. The maximum density is 30 units per acre. Wait a second. Okay, we're at, okay, so we're allowed to have 77 units. We have 40 units. It's not calculated to how many units an acre, I'm sorry. Okay, the question was raised about the setbacks. The side yard setback, which would be the setback behind the building, because our front yard is Sparta Avenue, so that whole line on the north side of the property is our side yard, is 10 feet. And the building is, no, the building, well, the patio and the balcony is 10 feet, but the building's 14 foot 8 inches. The rear yard setback is required to be 20 feet. And we are 20 feet. The rear yard would be the property line on the right side of the drawing. And we are 20 feet. That's the corner of the building touches the setback. And again, the last building was 20.7. So the minimum front yard setback is 50 feet. That would be the distance off of the right-of-way line for Sparta Avenue. We're 413 feet. So we're set back farther than the front yard setback. Okay. And then we're required to have 6 affordable units, and we do have 6 affordable units. Okay. And another requirement is that, that we have a sidewalk connecting to the public street, which we do. Street improvements. Now, we are improving the road all the way down to Sparta Avenue, but we say we comply. I think technically street improvements would be sidewalks and landscaping and that sort of thing, but our whole frontage is our driveway with a curb return. So that's all we can do. So I said we comply. I think you agree that we comply. We're supposed to have landscaping area, 30% of the impervious. So on this site, we're required to have 0.47 acres, and we have 0.48. And I'm going to add a couple more square feet to the site plan. Okay. And we met the parking requirements.
So with regard to the standards that were established by the ordinance for this zone, Mr. Burton, the application as depicted on the, and the project as depicted on the site plan complies, correct?
Yes, there are no variances. We comply.
And we discussed 4 waivers. 2 of the waivers relating to the landscape will be eliminated based upon your testimony. And there will be a waiver required for providing for 1 loading area, space, and also the waiver required for the sidewalk to be adjacent to the parking.
Correct.
Now, based upon your testimony and to your knowledge, your landscaping and lighting plan complies with Sparta's ordinances?
Yes.
And the stormwater will comply with Sparta's ordinances and the NJDEP standard.
Correct.
And an application, this dies again, and an application will be required to the Department of Transportation for the ingress and egress to the site, correct?
Yes.
But based upon your review and your testimony this evening, the appropriate approval should be provided by the Department of Transportation for such ingress and egress and also the storm sewer connection.
Correct.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Burton.
May I ask a question, please? I'm a little concerned about the thought of the kids walking to Sparta Avenue and waiting for school buses. Conceivably, you would have an lower elementary, upper elementary, middle school, high school buses there right next to the Burger King where they're coming out for their morning breakfast club. And then, of course, there's a Pope John bus coming there. So to have the kids just hanging out there waiting for the bus on Sparta Avenue, just, is there anything that is safe that you could put into play along Sparta Avenue so that the kids, would know where to stand? And presumably there would be some parents there too, hopefully. Sometimes there
children,
is,
yes.
sometimes there isn't, depending on where parents have to be. But this does concern me.
Right, I understand, and I'm not sure how the arrangement is. I know in my area, the parents drive their kids to school, especially the elementary. The high school kids, they'll let them walk to the bus stop, but a lot of them drive.
But to that point, you got such a long driveway, either the parent's gonna get if there's children in this development, they're gonna get those children in their cars, drive them down, and they're gonna be staged and stacked at the bottom of this driveway, or you're expecting them to walk down that entire driveway, or is there a way of making an arrangement for the school bus to go up and make a turnaround and pick the children up? Can that be determined?
Well, based on in dealing with schools before, they won't drive on private property. So, and I don't know, we haven't asked, but I just know they don't normally do that. Okay, so I would imagine the parents aren't going to let their elementary school kid or walk down, this driveway. Although where I grew up, it was a half a mile to the bus stop. And we walked down a big hill, a lot bigger than this. But then it was a more rural
We
area.
have bears up here, so.
Yeah. Anyway, so I don't know how parents, I'm just guessing that if I were a parent and I were bringing the kids down, especially like in this weather, they'd probably park in the Burger King parking lot, wait for the bus to come, and then bring the kids to the schools. I'm not sure.
I'm gonna, if I could, many of us have been sitting in our seats here since 6:30 tonight. I'm gonna ask if we just do a quick 5-minute stretch break, and when we come back, we could open up more questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sounds good.
Okay. Okay, so we're back. I think I'd like to, if there's any more testimony that you'd like to give, finish up with that, and then maybe bring it to our professionals to go through their questions before we bring it back to the dais, and kind of run through those, and we'll see where we are time-wise, if that's okay with you.
Chairman, I'm done with Mr. Burton's direct testimony.
Okay.
I realize we won't get to the architect tonight. Let's see what we deal with the professionals. We'll check the time. As I
Okay.
said, unfortunately, or fortunately, we will be back.
Okay, okay. Well, I appreciate that. So if you're done, I'm going to kick it to our professionals, or pass it to our professionals. Mr. Simmons, if we could start with you, if that's okay?
Sure, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Just referring to my report dated December 18, 2023, I'll note first that the applicant did go through a lot of the information in my report as part of their direct testimony. I'd just like to highlight some items just so the board knows what some of the concerns were, and also what additional information we'd like to get from the applicant's consultants before the next meeting, if that's all right.
Okay.
On page 3 of the report, the two items I just wanted to point out is item 4D, as in Dave. The grading plan calls for a substantial cut in the slope on adjacent Lot 2, up to approximately 18 feet plus or minus. Is the applicant aware of any development proposed on adjacent tax Lot 2 that will affect the proposed grading? And the reason I bring that up, I know the applicant has an easement on adjacent Lot 2 to do the grading that they're proposing. The concern I have is that I remember there was an application years ago for a Wawa on adjacent Lot 2. And as part of any future application on that lot, what's an embankment right now that's helping to buffer this building may not necessarily be there, depending on how they grade on the adjacent property. I don't know if they're aware of anything or not. But I think when they prepare their plans to show all four sides of the building, they should look at it from the standpoint of the way they've got it graded now, which I understand, but also look at it, what if that got graded off and that wasn't serving as a buffer, just so everybody's on the same page as far as that goes. The other point about the adjacent lot that I think they should investigate and come back to the board with is, and I'd stand corrected on this, when there was a development, and I seem to recall it was the Wawa on adjacent tax lot 2, there may have been some driveway access interconnect between the two properties to facilitate a driveway out over onto 517 on the bypass. Now, the one thing, just looking at this plan, I don't think the way the apartment building is positioned and the area on the left or the southwest side of the apartment building that's proposed to be preserved for the existing mature woods and what have you, I don't think there's much room, if any, to provide any access, if you do want any access, through the other property to get to the 517 bypass. So I think that next door property, which I understand is not under the control of this applicant, but I think they ought to think about it and just see how that's all going to work itself out, not only for what the look is from the 517 bypass, but what's going to happen and any kind of interconnectability. Because I thought there was some place where there might have been some access curb cut that was proposed, but again, they can scope that out between now and the next meeting. The other thing in 4E is an Edward that I brought up. As Mr. Burton pointed out, there's roughly about 9,800 cubic yards of excess material that's got to come out. That's about 655 tandem loads, as I calculate it. So I think they should determine if they're going to take that all down the access drive onto Sparta Avenue, or are they going to work something out with the neighbor to the north and perhaps put some of that material on that property. That's a lot of truckloads to take out. And I think logistically, they have to get back to the board how they're going to handle that.
And what question was that?
That was item 4E.
Oh, gotcha, thank you.
4E on
Okay,
page
thank you.
3. Then on the top of page 4, item 4F is in Fred. Maintenance of the chain link fence along the adjacent cemetery property to be confirmed by the applicant. I remember when the former application was here for Captiva, I believe there, at that time, there were some representatives from the cemeteries there asking who was going to take care of that fence. I'm not sure if it's your property owner's fence or theirs, but perhaps between now and the next meeting, if you could investigate that, just so that issue is put to bed as far as who has the responsibility for that. Then on page 4, just skipping down to item number 6, the landscaping. There was a lot of discussion about that tonight. We had asked, for example, on item number 6B, where there's a minimum of 30% of the impervious surfaces shall be dedicated to plant mass area. And I know Mr. Burton testified about all that and that they met that requirement. Between now and the next meeting, if you could provide those calculations and just get us the additional information, specifically the landscape plan that addresses the items and the comments that you had tonight, we could look at that and get back to the board between now and the next meeting. That would be very helpful. With regards to the utilities, again, they are, as Mr. Burton pointed out, taking sanitary sewer and potable water use down through mains all the way down to Sparta Avenue and tying in, and that's where they're going to get their services. The one thing that I just want to bring up is that based on the previous application, the Captiva application, my recollection is from some of the preliminary work that they did not have sufficient pressure to provide fire protection. And I would like it if Mr. Burton, between now again and the next meeting, if he could provide some additional information on how that's going to be accomplished. I realized there was an area outlined on the architectural floor plans for fire suppression room or whatever the particular title was.
Correct.
But again, just so we know what we're dealing with, because you are going to be up there in the upper areas where there's going to be less pressure, and just so we know that it's feasible to get it done up there. Then with regards to, on page 5, storm drainage, again, what we found looking at the plans was that the applicant has in fact met the requirements as far as DEP is concerned for the quantity reductions, the water quality, and the groundwater recharge based on their plans that they developed. They do have to get they did submit a best management practices manual that ultimately, just so the board knows, has to be recorded in the county clerk's office. So whether it's the Floss Group or some other group in the future, it's in the chain of title so they know what their responsibilities are, because there's maintenance involved with equipment that they're talking about installing. And bottom line is they have to realize, whoever owns the property, that it's their responsibility to do it. And as Mr. Burton pointed out, going down into Sparta Avenue, it is, as we said before, a state highway. So Route 181, you're going to be in front of the DOT in Trenton with road opening permits and requests for occupancy permits to do all the work down in that area. The architectural plan, I would just submit at this point, my understanding is the architect is working on revisions to the plans to come up with a different building look that he's going to run by the board. The signage, my understanding is, and again, they just, as they pointed out, just have 2 relatively small signs. There's not a lot of room for signs, especially down by Sparta Avenue. There's basically a wedge of area on their property between the curb line and the sidewalk and their property line where they can put something in. So that takes care of that. Fire protection, again, I think that's something we need a little more information on, and if you could get back to us on that, that would be great. The environmental impact statement, the one thing that I brought up was with the lighting, I think you were talking about an LED type fixture that had the illumination in the top, so you weren't looking right at the bulb, which is a good idea. If you could compare, I don't remember if it's on the plans or not, but if you could compare, unless it's the same, the type of fixture you're using in the pole with what's used normally in Sparta's streetscape program, if we could see how close it is to that.
Yes, I believe we use the same fixture shape. but I'll double check.
Yeah, if you could do that. And again, the streetscape has been carried throughout the whole township, especially in this area, Sparta Avenue, Main Street, and what have you. And just for continuity purposes and the look of the town, if we can consistently carry the same theme through and use the same type of fixture, that would be great. As far as the environmental impact statement, I believe the architect did talk about the generator, but said in order to meet any DEP and Sparta Township noise requirements, that they would take care of it. I think we should be able to show if we're going to have an enclosure or how we're going to handle that. So I think that would be good to know, especially for everybody in the neighborhood.
I don't think we put a note on there, but we were going to, a type 2 enclosure, so it will have an enclosure.
Okay, so we can follow through on that. Bless you.
Bless you.
On page 7, we had a list of all the various approvals we recommend that the applicant has to get, which if the board approves it, would have to be subject to that. And we talked about the setbacks and the parking spaces, and those are the main issues, Mr. Chairman, just in a highlighted area.
All right, thank you, Mr.
And I think it would be beneficial if the applicant could respond before the next meeting on that. That would be good.
Okay. Mr. Estrada?
Yeah, I just have a few quick questions. Have you,
If I could, I was going to, I'd like
I'm
to
sorry.
maybe let,
I'm sorry, yes, sorry. Sorry.
I'll go, just two very quick comments. One was, you mentioned that you're going to submit a revised landscaping plan showing additional plantings.
We have to come back, so I'll put a few, yes, I'll add some more land.
My last question, I know it was previous testimony, but I'd rather hear from the engineer. The comment, I had an original comment about the location of this amenity space being located where it is. And honestly, it bothers me, but I might be the only one. Anyway, knowing this site the way you do, without disturbing any area, I understand you're surrounded by steep slopes. Is it reasonable or to even consider almost taking that long linear amenity space and putting it and incorporating it somehow into the front entrance or the front of the building? I was thinking along the front of the building, actually, when you go into like an upscale restaurant or so forth, they have outdoor nice seating, a lobby area, a little bit of a, I don't know, an overhang or something like that. So but in order to increase the chances to become some type of social area where people could actually maybe meet or sit a little bit more comfortable rather than being stuck where it is across a parking lot, in between a parking lot and a driveway surrounded by cars.
So I guess what you're looking at is that we move some of those features, and I get what you're saying, to the front of the building. We could still keep some away. Usually when they have the barbecues, they are farther away because people could get noisy. But I understand exactly what you're saying.
And I know this is more towards the architect, but I didn't want to wait for him to bring it up again for, but maybe the way it's set up, it almost works like a hotel. But this is an apartment building, they're two very different type of uses. And the parking lot is set up exactly the way you would design it for a hotel, for the most part, right? But for an apartment building, you try and create a little bit more of a residential feel, a little softer feel especially along the entryway. So you're not walking in between the cars, trying to get into the front door. There's a couple of cars maybe that are removed, and there's a little walkway. Maybe it goes into a little sitting area. I don't know, something like that. I respect that we don't want to start taking down large trees. We don't want to expand into the areas where the steep slopes are. I just thought maybe you would take a look at that. if it's
Okay,
reasonable.
we'll look.
Thank
We'll try to do something.
One more comment.
Mike?
Yeah, sure. Mr. Burton, you mentioned there was a retention system, underground retention system for runoff. Did that have an oil water separator in that design?
Well, it will do some, it's not an oil water separator, but it will remove petroleum, yeah.
And it will also tie the runoff from the building itself and the parking lot runoff? All that will go into that system?
Well, the building itself, the roof water will bypass, that'll go right to the infiltration system.
Okay.
But the parking lot will go through the water treatment unit.
All right, and that system, I'm just trying to understand, I mean, like, I'm thinking oil, water.
where we come from,
separators,
right?
Et cetera, right? And you're saying this system will bifurcate those media? If there's oil or any residual runoff from the cars or whatever, if there's a spill from a delivery, that will get contained into and captured in that system? Or is that a whole different?
No, yeah, if this were a gas station, we'd put a fossil filter upstream, but it's not a gas station.
No, understood.
Yeah, what I'll do is, we provided the information, but the system is not meant to be a oil water separator, but it does remove
Because it's a recharge
petroleum
system, we're
products.
very sensitive to the aquifer, we're just, and
Yeah.
you're sitting on a lot of sand, like you mentioned. I think it's pretty important that we just get a little bit more information on that. And to dovetail the, Mr. Simmons' comments, the amount of fill you're gonna be removing from the site is substantial. I think if you calculate that out, it may be a 30 to 45 day, if you're running 20 trucks a day, if they can make the turn running 20 trucks a day, you could be anywhere from a 30 to 45 day window. That's significant, and that brings me into where I was leading this is possible, is there any thought of the construction timeframe? And, how long will the construction timeframe be from zero to 24 month project? And, just maybe commenting on how long your anticipated construction timeframe is, and then identify the staging areas for construction equipment, materials, et cetera. I don't know if your plans are to keep everything on the bottom part of Burger King and run it up the hill, or as you're going through construction, where you're staging the equipment, the materials, and all that, and the like.
Well, just quickly, all the staging, we've got plenty of room on top, so that'll.
It'll all be up.
It'll all be on top. There's no
contained up
need to.
there?
Yeah, you could see the big parking lot we have, and, this area is somewhat flat already.
Okay. And the concrete pads that are currently there are going to be removed and disposed of, not reused on as sub-base for any of that?
Yeah, all that,
It's all gone?
yeah, it should be a note on the demolition plan, but everything on top, everything from the bend in the driveway here, and that whole parking lot, everything up there is being removed, all the asphalt
And the
and
footings as
concrete.
well, correct?
Excuse me?
And the footings as well
Oh, yeah,
associated?
the footings, they have to move, yeah.
Okay. And lastly, as you mentioned, as shifting over to, I guess, a traffic question, as the cars come down and you're saying during peak hours, you're thinking maybe, I thought I heard 10 to 13 cars leaving in the morning between 7:30 and 8:30. How much stacking or staging do you have in that front part of the driveway, like pulling out? If one goes left, one goes right, how many cars are gonna be stacked up? Will it be all 13 all at the same time? or-
No, it's one every couple of minutes. We have a long driveway, but Burger King and the shopping center share it, otherwise, we could stack, 100 cars.
I know you have the stacking capability, it's just a question of, when those cars are coming out making, there's no left or right-hand turns, right? Some are gonna go left, some are gonna go right, I think if you could comment or get some more clarification on that, that would be helpful. Maybe that'll be further discussed with other board members. That's all I have.
Okay, thanks. Let me suggest, so we're coming up on the 10 o'clock hour. What I'd like to suggest is that maybe we continue with the questions. We won't bring up any new witnesses. Continue with the diocese on the questions that everybody has, and then open it to the public. And then in terms of the instructor-led recreational use, maybe we can push that to the next meeting. I'd like to have it pushed up front because it seems to always be the last thing. So I want to make sure we get to that next time. So is anyone in agreement with that? Okay, so why don't we do this? Why don't we go from left to right on the diocese with people with questions that you have? And Celeste, if you're okay, I'll start with you.
Oh, yeah, okay, not a problem.
Your left.
I have, had a few questions regarding walkability. I know that members of the public had raised questions about children, so on and so forth, but I also late last year had met with the senior advisory committee, and they were very interested in how this came together. And one of their top concerns was walkability and being capable of moving from the building down to the surrounding areas. So I know that there's a sidewalk intended there. But now, once you get down to the bottom right by Sparta Avenue, when we're talking about in terms of being able to, walk across Sparta Avenue, I know you said that there was a crosswalk, but again, if we're talking about queues of cars and, potential increased pedestrian traffic, what's the intention of handling that?
Well, again, we only have 33 feet of frontage along there. So, but yeah, the sidewalk situation, when you get down to the end, is not great. I don't even think, heading north, I don't even recall if there was a sidewalk, because there's a driveway immediately on the other side of the property for the shopping center. So I just, when you get to the end, it's not the greatest.
Right, well, that also brings up the concern that was already mentioned regarding school buses. So if there's no real sidewalk there and there's no real any place for somebody to stand or wait for school buses when you have several buses that potentially may need to queue, that creates more of a traffic concern, because now you've got, potential parents sitting in cars, potential buses, multiple buses sitting there in that one spot that's already a high traffic area. When you do, yes, there is going to be a breakfast drive-through traffic on top of, and that is within that hour of commute, right? So that's another big,
Right.
big ticket item. So if you guys can think about a better way to potentially address how that could be handled. Also, one of the questions regarding potentially crossing Sparta Avenue at that spot to get across to Ocean State Job Lot. I know that there was some concern surrounding that as well. So any thoughts that you might have regarding, walkability in that area, whether it's to put in a light where somebody can, just hit a button and potentially cross the road, or, to allow that foot traffic, that might be something to consider. But unless you have any initial thoughts on how that could be handled.
I think I better look at it.
Okay,
No.
thank you.
Mike?
I think Mike ran through his.
Thank you.
Yes, I have some questions.
He did it first.
The grade change, can you help me out from Sparta Ave to where the building is going to be? It's higher, correct, or is it lower? I'm having trouble.
The building is much higher.
Much higher, correct? Where the building is being built, correct?
Yeah, the grade at the street is elevation 738. The grade at the parking lot is 774. So that's about 40 feet, 38 feet. So
Okay, from the point of Sparta Ave to
there's
where
a grade change of 38 feet when you get to the front door.
higher, correct?
Higher, it's higher.
Okay, and the building's getting built up there, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'm having trouble understanding how I'm not going to see it from Sparta Ave.
Oh, no,
Because
well,
I heard testimony tonight that we're not going to see it.
no, you can see it in certain areas, but there's a lot of woods between the building and Sparta Avenue. I don't even know, well,
I know there's woods there, but the building's going above that, correct?
no, the woods are a lot higher. I mean, those trees are 70, 80 feet tall. There are mature trees up there. Even the evergreen trees are probably at their tallest. So that's what helps screen it. But also, when you're driving, maybe if you're walking, you could look up, but when you're driving, you're not looking to your right or left because you're watching traffic. Where you might see it, or you would have a better seeing it, is south.
Main Street,
Across,
correct?
yeah, down Main Street, across the valley, and then on the other side of the valley, up there, you could see it from there. Again, in
From
the
Stop and
winter
Shop, you
time,
mean? From the Stop and Shop or the other valley, but
no, I'm across, when I say the valley, across the Sparta, where Sparta Avenue is, this valley to the other, because it rises up again. So from across there, you'll see it. But then again, it depends. I think in the summertime, be less visible. But the upper floors are higher, yeah, so, but anyway. So you'll see it, but it's not going to be a direct view from most places.
Okay.
You can
Thanks.
see it.
I couldn't tell if it was north or south or up.
Go up there. You can walk up there.
We can?
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, you can't drive because it's a chain, but you can walk up there. Go to the Burger King and hike up there.
And the height.
It's a
of the
great
building-
view.
And the height of the building is going to be 40, a little north.
I think it was 46 feet.
40
That's to the roof,
To the top of the building, correct?
Yeah, with the architectural changes, there may be some peaks, but to the parapet, it is 44 feet.
Okay, I don't know what a parapet is. Is that just the top of the building? Or?
It's a little bit above the roof. So the wall extends above the roof line. That is called a parapet. So the top of that parapet.
Top of the parapet. is-
Yeah. So that's the top of the wall around the building.
And that's 47 feet. I believe
It's 44 feet,
44 feet.
44. When the architect comes back, he'll go through all that.
Okay. And the impervious coverage for the whole lot, am I correct? It's 60%?
Correct.
And it's going to the sewer, so there's not going to be a septic here, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I'll pass. Mr. Burton, thank you for a very detailed testimony so far. Just a couple of questions. Floor layout and the apartment actual layout, is that best for reserved for the?
Oh, yes, the architect, yes.
Sure. Can you just review the lighting system through the driveway? Is that where you said you're going to have those lampposts, or is that in the parking lot only?
Well, the whole site will be the lantern. And I believe we got it from the streetscape, so, but I'll just confirm it because one of my other engineers did it. So it's the typical lantern where the sides are sloped and then you've got a cone-shaped top. So again, instead of the bulb being in the middle like it used to be, it's an LED lamp on the top, so it's really shining down more than out.
And that will be from like what entry point of the driveway?
Let me see how close we get it.
Maybe identify the lighting plan.
Yeah, if you go to drawing 2.5, our first lamp is alongside of the parking lot to the strip center.
And then how many feet after, and then how many feet will they be recurring?
Maybe
The lamps are 55 feet on center. And the first one is from the curb line on Sparta Avenue, the first one is 35 feet.
And the hours of operation will be continuous?
Well, it's dawn to dusk, and on the plan, we have a note that after midnight, if we could change that, it'll drop 50%. That's another thing about LED lights, you can dim them. So the lighting will be much less. We'll probably have to keep a couple on up top as night lights, because you got liability, but they'll have to be on dawn to dusk. We have no choice.
You mentioned the generator. Is that, you said it was for emergency use only, emergency lighting only within the
Well,
apartment?
life safety, yeah, because otherwise it'd be a big generator if we're going to power the whole building.
Light, and that life safety?
Life safety, so, yeah, I
Emergency
think
exit
we have an
lights.
elevator, whatever, maybe we put the HVAC system for the hallways on or something like that.
The fire pit and the barbecue area, is that going to be natural gas? Wood?
Yeah, and
Charcoal?
that's typical, all the better apartment complexes do that. It's the same stuff you get from your home. It's, it's a fire pit, and the barbecue's a barbecue.
Natural gas, though?
Natural gas, yeah,
a
yeah,
direct
I
line.
think, excuse me?
A direct line, not
Yes.
a propane or?
No. I think that's the best. Because coal, you got coals, you got waste, it just,
Did we go over where the HVAC systems were going to be, or is that's for the architect?
well, no, the architect will tell you about that.
Okay. I think Mike asked earlier, but I don't know if you gave an answer about the expected time of construction.
I want to consult, and we probably have a note on our erosion control plan on how long we expect it, but I don't want to throw out a number.
Thank you. Mr. Mastrada gave it a suggestion of moving the recreational amenity area to the front of the building.
I think he said move some of it to the front, at least make the front a little bit more resident-friendly, maybe some sitting areas right at the front of the building, rather than having to walk across the parking lot, and that makes sense.
Understand. Is there like a patio or balcony for the residents? Are there first floor?
Yes. So the plans will show it, there's a patio for each unit, and then the upper floors, it's a balcony above the patio.
So I guess my question would be, if you moved some of the amenities to the front, would that inner buffer too close to the first floor apartments?
Well, we'll have to look at that. We will look at that when we make this move.
And then one thing about traffic, and Ernie, maybe you're the best person to answer. Is that a legal left turn entering this property off of 181? It is? It's on a double yellow?
Burger King.
Well,
You can make a left turn over a double yellow. It doesn't have a turn lane, but I mean, you have to use caution when you make the turn. It's not the best thing, but.
a double,
State
yeah,
of New Jersey to change it.
a double yellow doesn't restrict left turns. It talks about passing a car in front of you,
Only been
whether or
driving
not.
For 20 years, maybe I should know that.
I'm thinking the same thing. All those left turns I couldn't make.
I could have made them all.
No. Actually, there's a court case because the Ridgefield used to not allow left turns across a double yellow line, and then it wound up in court. So, but that was like 20 years ago. Anyway,
Making a lot of
so
left
there's a whole case about that.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bertrand.
Thank you. You all done? Good. Thank you, Mr. Burton. Appreciate it. All the details are great. I've several groups of questions. The first is around the environmental impact statement. I'd like to start with that. Who specifically performed the EIS?
Oh, I worked on it a year ago, and then other people in my office. And if there's any, traffic part would have come from my office, but anything like, if there's stuff on student population, we would have talked to a planner, and I'm not sure who we talked to, but I can, if you have specific questions, I'll find out. But it was a group of people in the office put it together.
Okay. What are your or their credentials in terms of environmental knowledge?
Well, it depends what it is. If we're talking about drainage and wetlands and stuff, we have that in-house, those credentials. We have wetlands experts. That we would have looked on the GEO website for that kind of information. When it comes to population, we don't have those credentials. We have to turn to a planner. I'm not sure if you have something specific there.
I'm talking more, not so much stormwater management, more wetlands, rare and endangered species, that aspect of the
Yes,
environmental
well,
side.
that we look on the GEO website, and that's where we would get that information. So the Department of Environmental Protection has a website where they maintain all this information. So that's where we go first. And I think we would have referenced it. We should have referenced it if we didn't.
Okay. Did you or anyone in your office visit the site specifically to perform the EIS in terms of looking for rare and endangered species, in terms of wetlands, in terms of all that?
No, we didn't. We went to the book first, and given the fact that we're on top of a hill and it's sandy soil, we wouldn't expect to see wetlands. We have on occasion, yes, we can send someone to a site to do, and then get an absence or presence interpretation. But the DEP would look at the GEO website as far as threatened and endangered species.
Okay, that's what I wanted to focus in on next. The report says that no wildlife study was performed and explains that no rare species are expected. It's, adjacent to commercial properties. I would also point out, though, that I've heard, 20 times tonight about the mature woods, and which is wonderful, and the conservation area of 17 acres to the north, and the cemetery. The property has been vacant for 20 or so years, so it is reasonable to think that there might be commercial properties on one side of it, but it's surrounded by lots of natural habitat. So I just want to drill into that a little bit more. So no study was conducted. The conclusion was that, it can be gathered that because of the zone and the adjacent properties, and because it was previously developed, again, 20 years ago,
It's a long time ago.
that no rare species are expected. Given the surrounding area, given this is Sparta in Sussex County, and we have endangered species, it's not uncommon, the wood turtles, lots of areas around here. I'm just wondering, it was gathered based on what facts or studies? I would have.
Well, typically, you start with the findings that are gathered by the state. That's where you start. And if there's an indication that there might be habitat to look at, then you would look at it. And so that's what that's based on. There was no indication by the records that there's threatened or endangered species, so that was done. Are there species living there? Are there squirrels and other kinds of things? Absolutely. I mean, there's tracks that go up there. When you go up there, you can see in the snow, you'll see the the rabbits and the squirrel tracks.
Okay. At the end of it, the conclusion of the report, it mentions it can be concluded that a few common species are likely there.
Absolutely.
Again, it's an assumption that these species are common, right? That there's not anything else there that would be deserving of more analysis.
Yeah, and to do a study, I mean, it's an extended operation to sit there and do a study. And I don't know if this is the time of year to do that kind of study. There's certain times of year you look for turtles. I think it's in the spring, or you would.
Okay.
I don't think this is an area for turtles. You got to be usually near bodies of water.
There are a lot of wood turtles, and documented in Sparta. So, maybe not right there. Okay. Shifting gears a little bit, the site plan showed 5 test pits that were used as part of the analysis, and I'm sure fed into some of the analytics. Those test pits were done in 2005 and 2008. I don't know the answer to this, and maybe our professionals can help too. Because the test pits were looked at that many years ago, are they still valid? Are they still accurate? And when you were feeding them into your models, is there a reason to need to redo them?
Well, first of all, we have to do test pits in the area of the basin. That's going to be required. So we have to do two more test pits. Okay. But given this situation, I mean, if we were in lowlands and groundwater may be higher and we could see modeling or signs of groundwater, that could change. But in this area, what's below the ground doesn't change. So I think you could take these test pits, that they're valid, but we have to do 2 more. I'm just telling you, we got to do 2 at this basin. So that will be done regardless.
Okay.
And I would just add to that, if I may, under the best management practices in the DEP stormwater regulations, especially what came out recently, there's requirements for, depending on what component of the stormwater system you're doing, they do have a minimum number of test pits or borings, and they have to meet certain criteria, certain depths. You might have to do some groundwater mounding modeling, that type of thing, just to make sure that you're meeting all their criteria. And again, as I mentioned on other applications in the past, periodically, Sparta was monitored or audited by DEP. So that's the type of thing where we have to have that documentation in the file to make sure we're ready if they ever come up and check out something.
Okay.
And this is going to the DOT, and even though the DOT shouldn't really be looking at it, I've got projects where no water is going to the highway, and they review the whole drainage system. Never mind. But they get a second look, and never mind. They go overboard.
Okay. Next question is related to something a little bit more minor, but there's documentation here around snow and the snow stockpile areas and snow removal, and there's an assumption that the snow will be stockpiled up to 3 or 4 feet high, and that should be sufficient. I have a few questions. One is, if we get 12 or 18 inches of snow in one storm, you're going to clear all the driveway, all the parking lot, and is it going to fit in that area 3 to 4 feet high? Second part of the question is, where does all that drain? does that get captured in the stormwater management system? Does it go down the hill to the cemetery? Where does all the snow?
Okay, well, the snow stockpile area is really along the southwesterly side of the property. That's where we left it, so, one reason why we don't put more landscaping. So it would be stockpiled there. When it melts, it's going to go down the hill. So won't go into the stormwater system, but it's not going to the cemetery because there's no really place to store it over there. And if we get too much snow and they really have to get rid of it, then they'll get rid of it. They'll truck it out. Usually, it had to be a really bad storm to make a problem. But anyway, if it gets excessive, then as other people do, they'll haul it away.
Hold on, wait. One clarification, you said it goes down the hill. Obviously, it's not going to go down the driveway necessarily. It's going to just flow downwards to Burger King, or?
No, it'll, where it's stockpiled, eventually it'll melt and it'll flow downhill. Yeah, and then it'll get into our driveway and into that drainage system and then go down to the DOT. But it will be collected into our drainage system. It will not go to the Burger King property, at least not the snow stockpile area.
Okay.
Other areas, landscaped areas along. No, nothing from our site can go to the Burger King because we have a driveway along Burger King and there's a curb there. So that answers that question.
Okay. Next, we've heard mention of the stormwater management system, the Coltech system. It's a very interesting system, the way where it sits. And can you just talk about that a little bit? Do you have experience with it in the past? Where, for how long? What are some of the pros and cons personally with that system?
Well, it's an arch or a galley. That's what it is. And these things came out, 20 years ago. And yes, there were some failures, but there's several systems. They're reinforced. They can take the loads. They've been tested. And basically, it's a cost-effective way to store a lot of water underground. So it's great from that standpoint. And although they do have ways to clean it, we have to have ports to clean it. I'm not really that familiar, but after all these years, that type of work has been done. And actually, there's companies that specialize in that, and that's part of our stormwater manual on how to maintain it. I don't know how to do it, but, the companies that do it, if you had to get it, I guess over time, like a dry well, stuff can collect and clog up the pores in the soil. But it takes a lot to do that.
And it entirely sits under the parking lot?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's an underground system. Instead of using dry wells, which we would have used a long time ago, which were big concrete cylinders with holes on the side and the bottom, this Coltech, or there's StormTech, there's several different models or companies, manufacturers. It's just seems like a better way. And one nice thing about it is it covers a bigger area. So you have more, I'm going to say, surface area to discharge the water as opposed to a dry well, which is more concentrated.
Okay. One question around circulation. I saw the fire department's report already. Just for my own curiosity, the question I asked earlier. So unfortunately, there's a fire in the building. It's in the back side of the building, the high part of the back, fourth floor in the back. The fire truck circulation, I've seen it. It only reaches the front of the building. Right. How does that work, just to help us feel more comfortable?
The architect is better at this, he'll get to it, but the building is sprinklered. We don't need, it's not required to have access all around the building. That's not needed. The point of the sprinkler system is to get people out of the building. And it's been proven time and time again that that's what it does, You want to have time to evacuate people from the building, but you do not need, it's not required to have access around the building.
Okay, that's all I have for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Just to clarify, you are using New Jersey GeoWeb to find out if there are suspected or there have been viewed any endangered or threatened species. Is that the one resource, mapping resource that you're using? You referred to GeoWeb or something like that.
It's the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. They have a website. So you go there and you can look up a lot of factors on property, aquifers, all sorts of things. Is it in the highlands? Is it in the sewer service area? all that information is collected, and then you can drill down. If there's a spill on the site, you can find out more about that.
Yeah, no, I'm very familiar with it.
Okay.
Are you aware that there's also another website that you might find useful that is focused on ecological concerns, and that is the Conservation Blueprint, New Jersey Map 2, and they mention things and have mapped out things like wildlife corridors and ecological areas of priority. So that kind of complements, I think, what New Jersey GeoWeb does. And then, of course, there's the Highlands Council, map system that talks a lot about hydrology and also wildlife. So on the Environmental Commission, we try to consult all three of those and see what the matching factors are and the areas of most concern for applicants.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll do that.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your excellent presentation.
Oh, well, thank you.
The advantage of being one of the last people to go is most questions have been asked and answered. The only one I have, actually, it's more of a request. And it's probably for the architect, I know he's going to give us some updated drawings. My question is, I look at the one we were given, that's gray. Are they married to gray, or or maybe earth tones be something that could be considered?
He heard you. The client heard you. They will spiff it up.
I think that fits more into the environment here.
Right.
So, thank you.
Yeah, I'm in the same along the lines of Ernie. I think all the environmental stuff.
Next time we'll start on the right side.
Well represented tonight. But yeah, I'm interested to see kind of what updates you do make architecturally with the design, as far as a very beautiful place, as you guys mentioned, and we want to make sure that the buildings and stuff match that and fit in. So I'll be interested to see some of that stuff in the next meeting.
Okay.
But thanks for everything else tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so it's 10:30. We still have questions open to the public, as well as open to the public for comments not on the agenda. So I'm not sure how much that we can push. Let's give it a few more minutes. Let's just see how we do if we get at least the public questions on this for people that are here. And I'm going to ask the people, try to keep it brief, given the time constraint. And if we can't get through it, we won't get through it. But let's give it a try. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Day. Jennifer Derricks, I'm still sworn in. A couple of questions. The first one, is the prior application for this property still in play? It was on the agenda before the turn of the year for an extension, but there was not a vote taken. My understanding was it died with the year. Is that correct?
Mr. Collins, you want to answer that one, please?
The request for extension is still on the table, but what we said was it will not be considered until after this case is over.
Okay.
And it doesn't, an application doesn't die.
Well, you had given it a one-year extension.
I think we went over this, but maybe it would help to go over it again. An extension request, approvals don't die.
Okay.
They don't expire. What happens is they have the benefit of protection against changes in ordinances.
Understood. Thank you.
And the application was, the time period for the protection against changes in the ordinance was extended until December of last year. A request was made for another one-year extension. That is pending and will be considered perhaps after this case. It may not be necessary if this case is approved. And so that hearing this information is helpful to know whether an extension is even needed.
Thank you for the clarification.
That being said, though, that means that, but when someone requests an extension, what happens is if it's granted, it goes back to the time when the time period for protection against changes in the ordinance would expire. So It doesn't,
I understand.
It can be granted later and
Right.
still be effective.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I appreciate that. Are there any underground storage tanks on this property? I know you mentioned a septic system, but are there any at USD's?
I was told a phase one was done, and it didn't come across it, so.
Is an LOI required on this property? Do we have an LOI?
No.
A little bit of history that was left out of the summary given about this property is in 2018. The developer brought the project to the zoning board requesting a C variance and 2 D variances to allow for apartments on the first floor and for height and for impervious coverage and setbacks. That was denied. Then the developer went to Bill Close, and I know this for a fact because I asked him directly and he responded yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I usually do allow wide latitude, but do we have a question for the engineer?
The question, you had brought it up when you were given the history of the project. That's why I'm giving a little bit more history. 20-04 was the ordinance change that was approved at the request of the developer to allow for this project to happen. I just wanted everybody to know that that's how this happened.
Okay, thank you, Jen.
Hello again, Kathy Ebenhausen, previously sworn in. I just have a couple of follow-ups based on the testimony given. I believe it was stated that parking is allowed of non-EV in EV spaces. Is that correct?
Yes. Because if you just restrict it to EV parking, that's the way it's been interpreted now, that you can park in an EV space.
Okay,
But if there's only 2 of them, obviously, we try not to. But that'll be a management issue.
got it. Is it only gas for heat and not oil? There's no oil on the property whatsoever?
They do not propose oil. It'll be electric or gas.
Okay. Have any treatments to the windows been conceived for preventing bird strikes since the building is so high?
I'll let the architect figure that one out.
Okay. For consideration to the board, please. Previously, it was testified, as someone had also mentioned, that there are about 13 extra cars during peak hours assumed. Do we know the rating or grade of the state road for Sparta Avenue today?
Excuse me?
The rating of
In
the
level of
traffic?
service?
Yes,
Um,
level of service. Thank you.
Well, at this driveway, the level of service would really be impacting the driveways, not Sparta Avenue, because that has the right of way. And so we'd have to do a traffic count and a study to figure out what the level of service would be based on, for the driveway, what it would be. So no, we don't know what the level of service is. You could figure it out at the intersection, but I don't know about the run of Sparta Avenue. I would say unless traffic is backed up, Sparta Avenue is at probably a level of service B. At the traffic light, it's a different story.
Is that a statement of fact?
No, that's an opinion because we don't have the counts to do a study.
Okay, I will mention that I believe that space in front of the Burger King is 2 lanes into 1. So it wouldn't surprise me if there was a backup in that space, and that's for the board's consideration as well. Up till now, most of the discussion has been about cars for traffic. I believe it was raised also, what about pedestrians? We're not really talking about the pedestrians as much. As we know, we want our town to be walkable, and when you're including this many new residents, that should be considered in terms of traffic, not just cars, but also pedestrians.
I think I spent a lot of time on pedestrian.
Of note, this year, well, last year now, as if my memory recalls, that we had a town council member already bring up concerns about children crossing Sparta Avenue at this location, generally speaking, for ice cream and sports games. So, that's already a concern in our town, whether you are here and understand that or not. I'd like to bring that up. With that in mind, can you talk about any impacts that you might have with this development on that pedestrian issue or concern?
I'm going to use a term, that's an off-site issue. I think it's important that we get our people to the sidewalk, and that's what I said I would look into. As far as crossing Sparta Avenue, I don't know that this is, in the middle of, in this area is a great place to cross. But that's a broader subject than this application.
Sure, that's true, and whether or not it's of concern of the developer, the reality is we're bringing additional pedestrians, and those pedestrians will want to go across the street to probably get some ice cream or down the
But I
road
think
to get
In terms of
some.
this application, if I could, Kathy, we've got to keep it to the questions about this application and this particular site.
I think you have to keep it to questions. I'm a member of the public, right? So there's a big difference in the rules. Can I not speak my opinions on what I think is here?
Feel free, go ahead.
Thank you. Regarding the bus stop, even this week, there have been a lot of cold days where we have parents idling in their cars with their children. I would think it would be the same with hot days as well. With Celeste and where are the children going to stand? Can a shelter be built, a bus stop? Have we accounted for the idling traffic on, leaving the property, all of those things? I mean, you're saying that we're not expecting children, but the reality is there are buses that are coming through there. They're very likely to stop. There are children who will be standing in the middle of Sparta Avenue on a busy street. And I think it behooves this board and this developer to make sure that those children are protected, both for the children's safety and the traffic concerns for backup for idling cars. My opinion, for your consideration. During the testimony tonight, I heard potential egress to Route 517, but then I heard it not. So I'm very confused. Can we clarify this point? Because
It's not. There's no access to 517 from this site.
Okay, I'm not sure why it was raised then, but thank you for clarifying. Previously, we talked about pets and individuals walking their pets, how they would go into the woods to have their pets relieve themselves. It sounds like the property dies off or has a very large slope. So is that a really good idea for people to be kind of falling off and allowing their pets to use the restroom?
No, the testimony from Mr. McNerney was that there'll be stations where we'll have the bags. As people walk the property, I don't think people will be walking in the woods. They could if they want. But the idea is when the dog does its thing, you pick it up. And that's become common practice.
So it wouldn't
I
be
mean,
in
we
the
do it out of
woods.
my yard. We have dogs. So.
Okay, well, I'm just
no,
clarifying because
that's
I
it. Yeah.
I thought I heard someone say
No.
they would walk in the woods.
We haven't put a dog walk here. We're not accommodating that, but people walking their dogs on a leash, unless the dog's trained, they will pick up after their dog.
Okay.
And that's part of the rules of the apartment.
Okay. Is the water retention accessible by humans, like by anyone?
No,
It's all underground?
all underground.
And the system that I heard discussed earlier, is that prone to sinkholes? Sinkholes have become a very interesting topic in the last few years. And that just a thought that came to mind when you talked about something underground that we maybe should consider.
There are certain soil types that are prone to sinkholes. I don't know that that's the case here. This is sandy soil, but when you have certain types of soil, the water will dissolve it. That's not what we have here.
Okay, so that's no.
No.
Are the air conditioners intended to be on the roof? Do we know?
Architect will discuss that.
Okay. Is the building intended to be uplit? Meaning lights would be at the base of the building in order to shine light so the building could be seen at night? Uplit
No, we aren't proposing any uplights.
on the building?
Correct.
Okay. I'm almost done. Snow pile, discussion about the snow pile. It sounded like it was melting out down the hill, and is that going to melt over the sidewalk, causing an ice situation when it refreezes?
Yeah, it could. It could, and then that's something that Mr. McNerney lives 15 minutes from here, he's going to come and check it. But no, that's actually a maintenance thing, whether the water's coming down the driveway or not, it's a maintenance thing that has to be taken care of.
But as an engineer, you have an opportunity to design, to design a situation that wouldn't be caused, right? So the question is to you. You're knowingly designing something that could be a hazard,
No,
is
no,
that
no.
right?
That's something, we designed for the park.
Mr. Chairman, if we could not be argumentative, I mean, snow does melt, and when it gets cold, it freezes.
And so, like in my office building, that's something we do hire out, and they come there before the building opens, and if there's ice, they salt it, so that is a maintenance issue. But we're not designing for a slipping hazard, it's just an act of nature.
And you're not designing for not a slipping hazard, just to be clear.
Well, that's not.
All right, so the final question I have is, we talked about building traffic in the morning and night during the days, the weekdays. We also talked about Burger King being midday traffic. What about weekends? We haven't spoken about weekends and any sort of impact we would expect to pedestrian traffic or vehicular traffic on the weekends. So that's for the consideration of the board as well. And if there's expected to be foot traffic, bicycle traffic, they would be guided along the driveway or along dedicated walkways.
There's a sidewalk along the driveway.
And is that on the street side or on the building side of that driveway there?
Well, it's on this driveway, it's on the building side of the driveway, all the way down the hill.
Got it. Is this a car-dependent development?
Well, we're in this part of the state, so yes, you do have cars. But no, the idea is that we have sidewalk connection, we are downtown, so that would promote people from here to walk to the stores in the area.
But yet, you're
So it's not, we live, in this part of the country, we are car dependent. It's not like if we were in Hudson County, in Jersey City, you're not as car dependent. But we have made this pedestrian friendly. So it is connected to nearby shops. So you can
Your
walk.
development is pedestrian friendly, but when we talk about outside the development and the dangers that exist on Sparta Avenue, it's no longer, pedestrians are no longer your concern.
Well, it's our concern, but it's a bigger concern, and it's beyond the scope of this project and for this applicant.
All right, thank you.
So Mark, is any other people who need to ask questions after Mark? Otherwise, I'd like to end it here with Mark, and then.
Hi, Mark Scott, 9 Pueblo Parkway.
Mark, were you previously sworn on this case?
I'm not sure.
It was last month, so I don't remember. I don't think you were, so please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do, thank you. The retention basin that you spoke about, that retention basin is underground?
Yes.
The last retention basin that was approved by this planning board is now the site of our newest pond in town. And it's right up here at the Askin Hooker Building. It's never, the water never seems to leave. And one day a little kid's gonna roll down in there and drown. But I was wondering, will this retention basin, it's gonna be underground?
Correct.
And so there will be no standing water on top of the surface like there is up there?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. The ordinance, isn't there something in this ordinance that says that this has to look like Sparta Town Center? Does that, when it says Sparta Town Center, is that Does that include Lake Mohawk?
Mark, questions are for the applicant.
Okay,
You
sorry.
might want to go to the ordinance. They know that there is an ordinance on the town center. They know, the architect was informed of it and is going to supposedly read its very elaborate conditions about the architecture, the design, compatibility with the town center, compatibility with the roof appearance requirements of residential appearance. Ernie brought up color. So if you want to ask this witness questions, you can,
Okay, I
but
will,
it sounds
sir.
like it's more
I
appropriate
think-
for the architect.
Right, there's an ordinance, and we should comply with the
Great.
ordinance, and it's not what's in the town, it's what's in the ordinance. So
Fabulous.
That, the effort will be made to work with that ordinance, that the architect will do that.
Okay.
We did that with
We,
regard to
we,
the
we
lighting.
spoke about the trees, the trees, the buffer of the trees between the subject property and Sparta Avenue. Will those trees be cut down or will they be maintained? And what assurance does this planning board have? Or what assurance do I, as a citizen, have that those trees won't be disturbed?
Well, I testified that the purpose of this design was to maintain the trees. The drawing shows that there'll be no disturbance and where the wood line will remain. I did say that some of the smaller scrub trees could be cut out and we could, clean up the woods, but my testimony and the drawings show that no trees in that area will be removed.
Thanks for the clarification. Are the COA units going to be spread out throughout the building or are they going to be all together?
Mr. McNerney said that they would be spread out.
And they're going to be on one side of the building, is that correct?
He said spread out. The architect can tell you they're on the drawing.
Was a GPR done at the site?
No, a phase one was done, and the phase one would have triggered if there was an underground storage tank. I think that's what you're getting at.
Correct. And multiple times tonight, we spoke about traffic study, the lack of a traffic study. Is it the planning board's ability to require a traffic study or ask for a traffic study?
Yes, they can ask for it. The idea was that we gave traffic information at the time we made the application. It was COVID and it didn't make sense to do any counts. But, so we gave in our EIS the generation for the site.
Thank you. The last thing is, now this is an off-site improvement, and in Sparta, we generally don't ask developers to make any type of off-site improvement, but why couldn't we put, I mean, we have Burger King, we have kids coming down off the hill from the apartment building, and they want to go over to Sparta Ice Cream or to the field and play. Why can't we put a request that a crosswalk be put in? With a light and a button, if the kid wants to cross, he gets to press the button and the traffic stops and you walk across. I know, now, I think it's part of the planning board's responsibility to,
Questions
is
to the
it possible that something like that could be done?
Right, so if I may, anything is possible, but under the municipal land use law, off-site improvements are restricted to certain items. Crosswalk is not one of them, and I think what is missing from what has been stated so far regarding Sparta Avenue, this is under New Jersey Department of Transportation control. You can say you want a crosswalk, it is up to the state to approve it. And they are not very friendly about allowing crosswalks. So, I mean, that's really what it is.
So I guess that's a no. Okay, thank you.
Okay, with that, it's, I can't even see anymore, 10 to 11, I guess. 10:48, thank you. So I think at this point, we should probably adjourn. Tom, do we have to have the session?
Pick a date certain that we're going to carry to. What do you want to go? It's up to the chair. What would you like them to aim for?
So I think, how are we looking schedule-wise, Dory?
We have the 7th or the 21st.
Okay. 7th, how does that work for?
Since it's the 17th already, we better have Mr. Burton have some more time to prepare the revisions and revisions and the architect as well.
Okay.
So maybe Callisto and Brian, what do you prefer?
what do you think,
We meet
Callisto?
first Wednesdays and third Wednesdays.
Right. You want February 21st?
Yes.
Now?
Yes,
We're good. February 21st.
This application of Plus Holdings will be carried without additional notices to February 21st at 7 PM.
All right, so the last item on the agenda, and Tom, can we pass on this, is questions to the public about things that weren't covered tonight. Can we pass that? to the
You
next
shouldn't
meeting?
pass on it, but you could ask to
What's that?
keep it. You can't really, you shouldn't pass on it. You should
Okay,
always
then
have it
let's
open.
let's
Yeah.
do that then, okay? Okay, so, gentlemen, thank you very much. Appreciate it. A lot of good questions and answers. So with that, let's just move to open to the public for comments on matters not on the agenda, not related to the hearing or the application of development. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, I'm sorry.
Can't hear you.
Yeah. Okay. All right, so seeing none, could I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make that motion.
I second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, adjourned.
All in favor?